In the year 2142, Earth had become a fractured planet, its nations splintered by the tides of war and political discord. The once united front of humanity lay in tatters, but one thing remained constant: the relentless conflict that had spilled over from Earth to the far reaches of space. The Galactic Alliance, a conglomerate of interstellar civilizations, had observed the chaos from afar, curious but cautious. On a desolate battlefield, the remnants of Earth's military forces clashed with the Xylar, a formidable alien race with skin like molten silver and eyes that glowed with a predatory intelligence. The Xylar sought to conquer Earth, believing the planet to be ripe for harvesting its resources coveted, its inhabitants viewed as inferior. They had underestimated humanity's resilience. Lieutenant Maya Chen, a tactical genius at just 28, stood atop a makeshift command center, watching the flickering holographic displays of her unit's movements. The air crackled with energy as explosions erupted in the distance, lighting up the darkening sky. Her heart raced with adrenaline, but an unsettling feeling gnawed at her gut. Something felt off. "Lieutenant, we're receiving a transmission," shouted Private Jackson, his voice barely cutting through the cacophony of battle. "Put it through," Maya ordered, her eyes narrowing. A holographic figure materialized before her, a slender being, tall and regal, with light features that shifted in color. It was Kira, an envoy from the Galactic Alliance, their presence shrouded in mystery. "Humans," Kira began, her voice a melodic whisper that echoed in the chaos. "The Xylar's aggression has escalated. They intend to annihilate your species and claim your world. The Alliance has decided it is time for you to join the war." Maya blinked, her mind racing. "Join the war? You mean send reinforcements?" "No," Kira replied, her eyes shimmering with a strange light. "You will receive the gifts of the Alliance. Together, we will unleash your true potential." As if in response, beams of light erupted from Kira's outstretched hands, striking the ground at Maya's feet. Energy coursed through her, filling her with a sense of clarity and power that had been absent moments before. "Your soldiers will be enhanced," Kira continued, her expression serious. "They will fight with the strength of 1,000 warriors." In a matter of hours, the battlefield transformed. Soldiers who had once struggled against the Xylar now stood taller, their muscles rippling with newfound energy. They felt invincible, as if the very essence of the universe coursed through their veins. Maya's heart swelled with hope. They could win this. But as the first wave of the enhanced soldiers charged into battle, an eerie silence fell over the battlefield. The Xylar, known for their ferocity, hesitated, their alien eyes widening in disbelief. The tide of war shifted. The humans fought with an unparalleled fury, pushing the Xylar back with each passing moment. However, Maya noticed something unsettling. Amidst the chaos, a small faction of soldiers began to act erratically, their eyes glazed, as if they were under a spell. They turned on their comrade, weapons raised. "Maya, we have a problem," Jackson shouted, pulling her back to reality. "What's happening?" she demanded, panic rising in her chest. "The enhancements, they're unstable. Some soldiers are losing control. Get them to the medics. We need to contain this." But it was too late. The situation spiraled out of control as more soldiers succumbed to the alien energy, their loyalty shifting from humanity to a primal rage. The battlefield became a frenzied melee of enhanced humans fighting against each other, while the Xylar watched in confusion and horror. In the midst of the chaos, Kira stood on a nearby hill, watching with a mix of curiosity and concern. Maya approached her, fear and anger colliding within her. "What have you done?" Maya shouted, her voice rising above the din of battle. "This was supposed to be our chance." Kira's expression shifted, her light features darkening. "You were not meant to become fully enhanced. The energy was only meant to empower you, not control you. Something in your biology reacted differently." "Different how?" Maya demanded, her heart pounding. "The enhancements were designed for those who have already achieved a level of unity with their surroundings. You are not yet ready." Maya's mind raced. "What do we do now? We can't fight each other." "Sever the connection," Kira urged. You must disrupt the flow of energy. Only then can you regain control. Maya nodded, determination setting in. She turned back to the battlefield, where chaos reigned. Soldiers fired upon one another, and the Xyler took advantage of the confusion, regrouping and preparing to strike. "Listen up," she shouted, amplifying her voice with a makeshift device. "You have to fight the enhancements, sever the connection, focus on the ground beneath you, feel the earth, fight it." A few soldiers paused, their eyes flickering as they struggled against the violent urge to attack. It was a long shot, but desperation lent Maya strength. As the tide of chaos swirled around her, she began to concentrate, channeling her own energy, feeling it pulse in rhythm with the world around her. She envisioned the bond connecting them to the alien power and grasped at the threads binding them, pulling hard against it. Slowly, one by one, soldiers began to regain control, shaking off the alien influence. They rallied, forming a line against the oncoming Xyler. "Push forward," Maya commanded, her voice strong and steady. "We can still win this." The tide turned once more. Humanity's spirit surged, and the soldiers advanced, fighting not only against the Xyler, but also against the remnants of the alien energy that still coursed through their veins. As the battle raged on, Maya felt a presence beside her. It was Jackson, breathless but alive. "We did it. We're back." Maya nodded, a fierce grin breaking through the tension. "But we have to finish this." Together, they led the charge, pushing toward the Xyler command center. The alien forces, still reeling from the sudden resurgence of human strength, faltered under the relentless assault. The battle dragged on, each moment stretching into eternity. Maya found herself face to face with a Xyler commander, a massive figure with armored skin and eyes that glimmered like stars. They engaged in a brutal confrontation, each blow echoing across the battlefield. But then, in a moment of clarity, Maya realized something. The Xyler were not simply invaders. They were a species driven by survival. Perhaps there was a way to end this without total destruction. With a final, desperate move, she disarmed the commander, knocking its weapon aside. "Enough," she shouted, breathing heavily. "We can end this. We can find a way to coexist." The Xyler commander hesitated, its glowing eyes narrowing as it regarded her. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, an unexpected sound erupted, a signal from the Xyler fleet hovering in orbit. A massive ship descended, its hull adorned with glowing symbols. The ship emitted a resonant frequency that echoed through the air, calming the frenzy on both sides. Maya's heart raced as she realized that this was their signal for retreat. The Xyler commander regarded her for a moment longer before turning away, issuing a command that sent the remaining troops back. Victory tasted bittersweet on Maya's lips. They had won, but at what cost? As the Xyler retreated, she turned to her fellow soldiers, who were still catching their breath, bruised and battered but alive. "We've made it through," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "But we have to learn from this. We can't allow ourselves to be manipulated again." The battlefield fell silent, and as the last of the Xyler ships disappeared into the stars, Maya felt a spark of hope. This was not the end of the war, it was just the beginning of a new chapter. With Kira watching from a distance, Maya realized the truth: they would need to forge their own path, learning to navigate the complexities of their newfound abilities. The Galactic Alliance had offered them power, but it was up to humanity to define its destiny. As the sun rose over the scarred landscape, like the remnants of battle, Maya knew one thing: they were no longer alone. The universe was vast, filled with both wonders and dangers, and they had just begun to understand their place within it. The echoes of war faded, replaced by a fragile peace, and in that moment, amidst the ruins of conflict, humanity stood ready to rise again. In the weeks following the conflict, Earth underwent a transformation as profound as any seen in its tumultuous history. The aftermath of the battle with the Xyler had left scars, not only on the land but deep within the hearts and minds of its soldiers. Among them was Lieutenant Maya Chen, who had witnessed both the depths of despair and the heights of courage. Maya stood at the edge of a makeshift observation platform, overlooking what remained of the battlefield, now a quiet expanse dotted with remnants of war. The sun shone brightly, lighting the debris and the makeshift memorials erected by soldiers honoring their fallen comrades. The eerie silence felt heavy, as if the world was holding its breath. "Are you ready for this?" a familiar voice asked. Maya turned to see Private Jackson, now promoted to corporal, standing beside her. At 22, he was still young, but the recent battles had forced him to mature beyond his years. His once bright-eyed enthusiasm was tempered by the gravity of their experiences. "I'm not sure if anyone is ever ready for this," Maya replied, her voice soft but resolute. "But we have to face it." Together, they had been tasked with leading a mission to uncover the remnants of the Xylar fleet that had retreated. Intelligence suggested that the Xylar had left behind technology capable of enhancing or neutralizing the alien energy still lingering in some of their soldiers. It was an opportunity to understand their enemies better, but also a daunting challenge. "We can't let fear hold us back," Jackson said, determination etched on his face. "We owe it to those who fought for us." Maya nodded, taking a deep breath. "You're right. We need to learn from this. For them. For us." As they prepared for the mission, the bond between Maya and Jackson had deepened. They shared more than just camaraderie. They had become a support system for each other, navigating the uncertainties that came with their newfound abilities and responsibilities. Maya often felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her, but Jackson's unwavering optimism was a constant reminder of why they fought. The mission commenced with a group of their most trusted soldiers, all of whom had struggled to regain control after the enhancements. Among them was Sergeant Elena Torres, a seasoned veteran at 35, whose sharp instincts had saved lives on the battlefield. She had become a mentor figure to many, guiding them through their internal battles. As they approached the wreckage of a downed Xylar ship, Maya felt a familiar rush of adrenaline. The wreckage was vast, a silver husk twisted and torn, a stark reminder of the price of war. The team spread out, cautiously assessing the area. "Stay alert," Maya instructed, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We don't know if any Xylar remain nearby." They began to sift through the debris, searching for anything useful. Jackson's keen eyes caught sight of a console, partially intact but flickering with residual energy. "Maya, over here," he called out. Maya rushed to his side, studying the console. "If we can access the data, it might help us understand their technology better. It could give us an edge in future encounters." Elena knelt beside them, her brows furrowed. "But we need to be cautious. We don't want to trigger anything that could alert the Xylar." As they worked together, the tension of the previous battle hung in the air. Each soldier faced their own demons, memories of comrades lost still fresh. Conversations became hushed, laughter absent. Maya could feel the weight of leadership more than ever. She had fought to regain control after the enhancements, but some nights were still haunted by her thoughts. What if the enhancements returned? What if they were never truly free? "Focus on the task at hand," she reminded herself, shaking off the doubts. Hours passed, and as the sun began to set, they finally managed to extract a data core from the console. Just as they secured it, a distant sound broke the silence, a low, ominous hum. "Did you hear that?" Jackson whispered, his eyes widening. The ground trembled beneath them, and from the shadows, a small group of Xylar emerged, their silver skin glinting in the fading light. Panic surged through Maya. "Fall back," she shouted, adrenaline fueling her voice. But before they could retreat, the Xylar raised their hands, emitting a pulse of energy that rippled through the air. It was the same energy that had once entranced them, and Maya felt a familiar tug at her consciousness. "No," she cried, shaking her head. "We have to resist." Elena stepped forward, her voice firm. "Stay grounded. Remember what we learned." Drawing on their training and the connection they had cultivated with the earth and each other, the soldiers focused their energy, pushing back against the pull of the alien influence. Maya locked eyes with Jackson, their shared determination sparking a renewed strength. Together, they stood firm, channeling their will against the encroaching energy. As the Xyler advanced, Maya shouted, "We won't let you take us again." In a surge of defiance, she and her team unleashed their combined energy, creating a shockwave that pushed the Xyler back, forcing them to retreat into the shadows. Breathing heavily, Maya turned to her team. "We need to report this," they're regrouping. That night, as they returned to their base, Maya felt a mixture of triumph and anxiety. They had pushed back the Xyler, but the battle was far from over. Days turned into weeks, and with each mission, Maya's leadership evolved. She worked closely with Jackson and Elena, forging strategies that balanced their new abilities with their humanity. The soldiers began to open up about their fears, sharing stories of loss and hope. One evening, gathered around a campfire, Elena shared a tale of her brother who had been lost in a previous conflict. "I thought I could never fight again. The guilt weighed heavy, and I was terrified of becoming a monster," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But then I realized, fighting isn't just about strength. It's about protecting what we love." Maya felt the fire crackle in her heart as she listened, the warmth of connection spreading among the group. They were no longer just soldiers. They were a family, bound by shared experiences and the desire for a better future. As the weeks passed, their missions grew more ambitious. They began exploring Xyler outposts, gathering intelligence and technology. Each victory, however small, was a step toward understanding their enemy. But with each victory, Maya felt the weight of leadership press down on her shoulders. There were still those among them struggling with the residual effects of the enhancements. She spent long nights talking with Jackson, brainstorming ways to help the affected soldiers. "I don't know if we can ever truly recover," Jackson confessed one night, his voice low. "What if we're never the same?" Maya placed a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe we're not meant to be the same. We have to find a new normal together." Their bond deepened as they navigated the challenges ahead. Each mission brought them closer, weaving a tapestry of trust and understanding. The fears they once faced alone became shared burdens, and together they forged ahead into the unknown. One evening, while preparing for a critical mission to infiltrate a Xyler command post, Maya gathered her team. "This is our chance to gather vital information about their operations. If we can disrupt their plans, we may gain the upper hand." The tension was palpable as they prepared. Jackson looked at Maya, his eyes filled with determination. "We've come this far, and we can't turn back now." As they moved under the cover of darkness, Maya felt a surge of confidence. They had learned to rely on each other, and their bond made them stronger. The challenge ahead was daunting, but together they could face anything. They approached the command post, a fortress surrounded by high walls and guarded by Xyler sentinels. Maya signaled for silence, and they slipped through the shadows, avoiding detection. Inside, they discovered a labyrinth of corridors filled with alien technology. As they made their way deeper, they encountered data terminals displaying troop movements and plans for future attacks. "This is it," Elena whispered, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "We can't let this information fall into their hands." As they began downloading the data, the alarms suddenly blared, red lights flashing throughout the facility. "Time to go," Maya shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. The team dashed back through the corridors, the sound of Xyler voices echoing behind them. They burst into the open air, racing toward their extraction point. Just as they reached the perimeter, a group of Xyler soldiers intercepted them. Maya's heart raced as she prepared for battle, but something shifted within her, a resolve born from every challenge they had faced together. "Stay close," she commanded, leading her team into a defensive formation. The fight was fierce, the Xyler relentless, but Maya felt the energy of her comrades coursing through her. They moved as one, instinct guiding their actions. In the midst of the chaos, Jackson found himself facing an imposing Xyler warrior. Time seemed to slow as he dodged its strikes, feeling the alien energy pushing against him. Drawing on everything they had learned, he channeled their shared strength, unleashing a burst of energy that knocked the Xyler back. "We can do this," he shouted, rallying the team. As the battle raged on, Maya felt the pulse of her team beside her, each soldier a living testament to resilience and growth. The Xylar soldier that had attacked Jackson staggered, and in that moment of vulnerability, Maya seized the opportunity. With a swift, calculated strike, she incapacitated the enemy, her movements fueled by the training they had undergone together. "Keep moving," she shouted, urgency lacing her voice. The team had to regroup. They couldn't allow the Xylar to corner them. Elena was right behind her, guiding the others with the precision of a seasoned warrior. "We need to split up and create diversions," she said, glancing back to make sure everyone was following. "Agreed," Maya replied, the plan already forming in her mind. "Jackson, you and Elena take the left flank. I'll cover the right with the others." "Let's do this," Jackson responded, a fierce grin breaking across his face, the fire of determination shining in his eyes. In a whirlwind of motion, they separated, using the chaos of the battle to their advantage. Maya sprinted through the winding paths of the Xylar facility, adrenaline surging. Each twist and turn felt like a test, every shadow hiding potential danger. As she reached a narrow corridor, Maya felt a moment of clarity wash over her. She was no longer just a soldier fighting for survival. She was a leader, a symbol of hope for those who fought alongside her. She rounded a corner and spotted another group of Xylar soldiers. Without hesitation, she ducked into a side room, her heart racing. Inside, she found crates filled with alien weapons and technology. An idea sparked in her mind. "We can use these," she murmured, glancing around for anything that could aid her team. Meanwhile, Jackson and Elena executed their diversion with precision. They had split off, leading the Xylar away from Maya and the others. Jackson's quick thinking had them moving seamlessly, their training paying off as they communicated through gestures and expressions, maintaining their silent coordination. "Now," Jackson yelled, and they activated their distractions. Explosions of light and sound erupted behind them, drawing the attention of the Xylar soldiers. It worked. Shouts filled the air as they turned to investigate. Maya seized the moment, quickly moving through the room, gathering whatever she could carry. She knew they would need every advantage they could muster. Just as she was about to leave, she heard voices approaching. Her heart raced as she crouched behind a crate, straining to listen. The Xylar were discussing their plans, revealing details about reinforcements and strategies for future attacks. It was invaluable information. Taking a deep breath, Maya activated her comm link. "Team, I've found something. I need backup." "On our way," Jackson's voice crackled through the static, urgency palpable. Moments later, Elena and Jackson burst into the room, eyes wide as they took in the scene. "What did you find?" Elena asked, her gaze darting around. "Plans for their next offensive," Maya said, showing them the data on a tablet she had retrieved. "We have to get this back to base." Before they could react, the Xylar soldiers returned, their eyes narrowed in suspicion. Maya's instincts kicked in. "Run!" she yelled, pushing Jackson and Elena toward the exit. They fled, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. The trio darted through the corridors, adrenaline fueling their flight. Maya felt the thrill of survival mixing with the fear of capture. Each corner they rounded brought them closer to the exit and closer to danger. As they burst into the open air, Maya quickly scanned their surroundings. "We need to regroup with the others," she urged, her heart pounding in her chest. They sprinted across the battlefield, reuniting with the rest of their team. Elena's leadership shone as she quickly assessed the situation, guiding them to a secure location behind a ridge. "Did you get the intel?" she asked, concern etched on her face. "Yeah," Maya replied, breathless but determined. "But we're not out of this yet." As they huddled together, the reality of their situation weighed heavily on them. The Xylar were regrouping, and the threat of retaliation loomed large. "We need to plan our next move," Jackson said, glancing at the others. "We can't let them recover from this." Maya nodded, grateful for Jackson's resolve. "We have the intel now. If we can disrupt their communication channels, we can gain a significant advantage." Elena chimed in, I can lead a small team to gather more information about their tech. We need to learn how they communicate." The plan solidified quickly. They would split into smaller teams, using the intel Maya had gathered to pinpoint weaknesses in the Xyler operations. It was a risk, but every soldier in the unit felt the urgency to act. Over the following weeks, their missions became increasingly daring. Each operation brought them closer to uncovering the Xyler's weaknesses while also testing their bonds. Maya, Jackson, and Elena grew closer, relying on each other not only for their survival, but also for emotional support. One night, gathered around a fire after a successful mission, Jackson opened up about his fears. "I still wake up sometimes, thinking I'm back in that chaos. It's like the shadows of battle never really leave." Elena nodded, her expression understanding. "We all carry those shadows, but we have to remember why we fight. It's not just for ourselves, it's for those who can't fight anymore." Maya leaned forward, her gaze steady. "We have to learn to channel those fears into strength. They're part of us now, but they don't have to define us." As they spoke, the bonds between them solidified. They were no longer just comrades, they were family. Together, they began to navigate the complex emotions of loss, fear, and the relentless hope for a better future. By mid-December, the culmination of their efforts led them to a decisive moment. They had located a critical Xyler communication hub on a remote moon, and they knew this mission could turn the tide of the war. "This is it," Maya said, her voice steady as she addressed the team. "We disrupt their communications, and we cut them off from their reinforcements. This could change everything." They prepared meticulously, understanding that failure was not an option. As they boarded their transport ship, Maya could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on her. The stakes were higher than ever, and the responsibility of leadership was a mantle she had grown accustomed to but never took lightly. "Stay sharp," she instructed as they took off, her heart racing with anticipation. "We stick to the plan. No heroics." The journey to the moon was filled with a tense anticipation, each soldier reflecting on the sacrifices made to reach this point. Maya glanced at Jackson, who caught her eye and offered a reassuring nod. As they approached the communication hub, the moon's surface was a stark contrast of shadows and lights, the Xyler presence evident. The moment they landed, adrenaline surged through them. They moved swiftly, their training kicking in. "Take positions," Maya ordered, her heart pounding. "We move as one." They infiltrated the hub, a labyrinth of metallic corridors filled with alien technology. The air buzzed with energy, a testament to the importance of this location. As they navigated the halls, the urgency heightened with every step. Suddenly, an alarm blared, red lights flashing throughout the facility. The Xyler were onto them. "Time to move," Elena shouted, leading the charge. Maya felt her instincts take over, and they raced through the corridors, determined to reach the main communication terminal. As they burst into the control room, they found themselves surrounded by advanced technology, screens flickering with information. "There it is," Jackson exclaimed, pointing to a central console. "We need to shut it down." While Jackson and Elena worked to disable the system, Maya kept watch, her heart racing as she felt the impending threat of Xyler soldiers closing in. "Almost there," Elena shouted, her fingers flying over the controls. But just as they were about to succeed, the door burst open, and a group of Xyler soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. "Get down," Maya yelled, pushing Jackson and Elena out of harm's way. A fierce firefight erupted, and Maya's focus sharpened. She fought with everything she had, each movement fueled by the knowledge that failure was not an option. She was fighting for her team, for their future, and for the hope of peace. As the battle raged, the intensity grew. Jackson managed to fend off an attacking Xyler soldier, while Elena worked furiously at the console. "We need to hurry," Maya shouted, feeling the pressure of time. "We can't let them activate a distress signal." Finally, with a triumphant shout, Elena hit the final key. "Got it! We're shutting down their communications." The lights flickered, and the hum of the facility quieted. They had done it. but the victory was short-lived as a powerful blast reverberated through the control room. The remaining Xylar soldiers regrouped, and their reinforcements were on their way. "Let's get out of here," Maya urged, adrenaline fueling her movements as they turned to flee. They raced through the corridors, but the Xylar were relentless, their numbers growing. Just as they reached the exit, Maya saw Jackson struggle against a Xylar warrior, the fight fierce. As the alarms blared, a deafening echo of chaos filled the air. Maya Chen, feeling the rush of adrenaline surge through her veins, turned to see Jackson engaged in a fierce struggle with a Xylar warrior. The sight ignited an overwhelming need to protect him, to ensure that their bond formed in the fires of war was not severed. "Jackson!" Maya shouted, her heart pounding. "Hold on." Jackson, now 23, had transformed from the eager private into a courageous soldier, but even he struggled against the power of the Xylar. As the alien grappled him, Maya rushed forward, feeling the energy coursing through her as she tapped into the enhancements they had all endured. "Let him go!" she roared, launching herself at the Xylar soldier. With a swift kick, she knocked the warrior off balance, freeing Jackson. He stumbled backward but quickly regained his footing, his eyes filled with gratitude and determination. "Thanks, Maya," he said, breathless. "Just move," she urged, glancing toward the exit. "We need to get out before more of them arrive." Elena, now 36 and a beacon of strength for the group, was at the forefront, guiding them through the chaotic maze of the facility. "This way, we'll take the side corridor," she called, her voice steady amidst the turmoil. The three of them sprinted down a narrow passage, narrowly avoiding the Xylar reinforcements that poured in. Maya felt the familiar pressure of leadership settle over her shoulders as they dashed through the winding hallways. Each corner turned brought the threat of confrontation, but they pressed on, united by their shared purpose. They finally reached a large service door leading to the exterior. As Maya pushed against the panel, her mind raced with the possibilities of what could happen next. This mission could alter the course of the war. Their success hinged on their ability to escape and relay the information they had obtained. The door hissed open, revealing a dimly lit exterior. The cold air hit them, refreshing yet unsettling. They could hear the distant sounds of battle behind them as the Xylar soldiers scrambled to regain control of their communication hub. "We're almost there," Elena urged, scanning the area for their extraction point. As they moved, Maya felt a bond forming among them, a deeper understanding of their strengths and weaknesses. Each soldier carried the weight of their past experiences, and together they formed a tapestry of resilience and bravery. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the ground, sending them tumbling. Maya instinctively reached out, grabbing Jackson's arm to steady him. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern etched on her face. "Yeah, I'm fine," he replied, his expression determined. "Let's keep moving." They pressed on, and soon they spotted their transport ship in the distance. The sight filled Maya with a renewed sense of hope. However, as they neared, a sense of foreboding crept in. The ship was surrounded by a group of Xylar soldiers. "Looks like we have company," Jackson said, his voice tight. Maya inhaled deeply, her mind racing. "We can't let them reach the ship. If they take it, they'll have access to the intel we gathered." With no time to waste, she turned to her team. "Elena, Jackson, cover me. I'll create a diversion." "Are you sure?" Elena asked, her brow furrowing with concern. "I have to," Maya insisted, meeting both their eyes. "I'll draw their attention. You two get to the ship and hold it." With determination set in her features, Maya dashed forward, using her enhancements to push herself faster. She darted toward the Xylar soldiers, drawing their fire as she maneuvered through their ranks. "Hey, over here!" she shouted, her voice echoing across the battlefield. The Xylar turned, focused on her. As they advanced, she could feel her heart racing, the adrenaline coursing through her like wildfire. She ducked and weaved, evading their blasts, all the while calculating her next move. Behind her, Jackson and Elena moved with purpose, flanking the Xylar and using the cover of the terrain. Maya glanced back, catching a glimpse of Jackson, who was now more than just her comrade. He was a trusted friend, someone who understood the weight of their shared experiences. The connection between them had deepened in ways that were hard to articulate. They had fought side by side, faced down their fears, and emerged stronger for it. The bond formed from the crucible of war was unbreakable. Just as she thought they were gaining the upper hand, one of the Xylar soldiers fired a powerful blast, narrowly missing Maya. She stumbled, regaining her footing as she felt a surge of frustration. "Come on," she urged herself. But then she heard a cry, a sound that stopped her heart. It was Jackson. "Maya," he shouted, his voice tinged with panic. She spun around, her eyes widening as she saw a Xylar warrior grab Jackson from behind. The sight filled her with a sense of dread she had never felt before. The thought of losing him, of their bond being shattered, propelled her forward. "No," she screamed, pushing herself to her limits. In a burst of energy, Maya surged toward Jackson, unleashing a wave of force that knocked the Xylar off balance. Jackson broke free, panting heavily. "Thanks," he gasped, relief flooding his features. "Let's get out of here," Elena urged, and they turned as a group of reinforcements approached, their numbers overwhelming. Maya and her team fought back fiercely, using every ounce of strength they had. The sound of blaster fire and the shouts of Xylar soldiers filled the air. They moved in unison, an instinctual rhythm forged through countless battles. In the thick of it, Elena shouted, "We need to regroup, fall back to the ship." With no other option, they retreated toward the transport, Maya's heart racing. They were almost there when a Xylar soldier appeared in their path, blocking their way. "Hold on," Jackson shouted, stepping in front of Maya protectively. "No, we need to keep moving," she cried, but it was too late. The Xylar soldier aimed its weapon, ready to fire. Just then, Elena stepped forward, channeling her energy into a powerful strike that disarmed the soldier. "Go," she commanded, her voice fierce. Maya felt a surge of pride for her team. They were fighting not just for survival, but for each other. Together, they raced toward the ship, adrenaline and fear fueling their flight. Finally reaching the transport, they scrambled aboard, breathless and battered. Maya slammed the door shut, locking it behind them. The moment felt surreal victory tinged with the bitter taste of survival. "Get us out of here," Maya shouted at the pilot, her heart still racing. As the ship lifted off, they watched the Xylar facility recede into the distance, a mixture of triumph and relief flooding their hearts. They had achieved their objective, but at what cost? Once in the safety of space, Maya turned to her team, who were catching their breath. "We did it," she said, the weight of their success settling in. "Barely," Jackson replied, a hint of laughter in his voice. "But we made it." Elena smiled, her expression warm. "We've learned to rely on each other. That's what makes us strong." Maya nodded, feeling the bond between them solidify. They were no longer just soldiers fighting a war. They were a family, forged in the heat of battle. As they returned to base, the gravity of their experiences hung in the air. The intel they had gathered was crucial, and their victory was a turning point in the war against the Xylar. However, the journey ahead was fraught with challenges. In the weeks that followed, they focused on analyzing the data they had retrieved. The insights revealed the Xylar's communication networks, vulnerabilities that could be exploited in future missions. With each revelation, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. But the shadows of their battles continued to linger. The trauma and losses they had experienced weighed heavily on each of them, and it was evident that they needed to address their emotional scars. One evening, as they gathered in their common area, Maya took a deep breath. "We need to talk about everything we've been through," she said, her voice steady. "We can't ignore it anymore." The room fell silent as the team exchanged glances. It was a sensitive topic, but Maya understood that confronting their experiences was essential for their growth. "I've had nightmares," Jackson admitted, his voice quiet. "I wake up sometimes, thinking I'm still fighting." Elena nodded, her expression somber. "I've felt it too. The guilt of those we lost weighs heavily on my heart." Maya felt a surge of empathy for her friends. It's okay to feel that way. We've faced unimaginable challenges, and we're still processing it all. Together, they shared their fears, their losses, and their hopes. It was a cathartic experience, an opportunity to lay bare their emotions. The bonds they had formed in battle now became a source of strength as they supported one another through their vulnerabilities. As the weeks turned into months, they began to heal. They grew more connected, sharing not just their fears, but also their triumphs. Each mission they undertook brought them closer together, their camaraderie deepening. As spring settled over the war-torn planet of Varlin, a sense of renewal permeated the air. The trees, once scorched by the fires of battle, began to show signs of life again, and for Maya Chen, now 28, the changing season mirrored her own journey of growth and resilience. After the successful mission to disrupt the Xyler communication network, Maya felt a shift within herself. She had evolved from a soldier driven by the need for survival into a leader committed to protecting her team and ensuring their future. The emotional scars from their past battles remained, but she had learned to channel those experiences into strength. In the base, the atmosphere buzzed with renewed purpose. Maya, Jackson, and Elena gathered in the command center, poring over their next mission's details. Jackson, now 24, had blossomed into a skilled strategist, his confidence growing with each operation they completed together. "Here's what we know about the Xyler supply routes," Jackson said, pointing at the holographic display. "If we hit this supply line, we can weaken their front lines significantly." Elena, 37 and a steadfast anchor for the team, leaned closer, her brow furrowed in concentration. "This could work, but we need to ensure we have enough intel on their patrols. We can't afford to be caught off guard." Maya nodded, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "We'll need to split into teams to gather more intel. Jackson, you and I can scout their southern route. Elena, you take a smaller team to monitor their northern flank." The plan solidified quickly, a testament to the synergy they had developed. Each mission had deepened their understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses. They had learned to rely on one another, forming a bond that transcended mere camaraderie. As they prepared for the mission, Maya reflected on how much had changed since they first joined the fight against the Xyler. The trials they had faced had transformed them into a cohesive unit, and the emotional walls they had once held up began to crumble. On the day of the mission, the three of them suited up, the weight of their gear a familiar comfort. Maya felt the pulse of anticipation in her veins, the thrill of the unknown calling to her. They set out at dawn, the sun rising over the horizon, casting a warm glow on the world around them. The southern route was quiet, but Maya knew better than to let her guard down. As they navigated through the dense foliage, she and Jackson moved in sync, their instincts honed by months of shared experience. "Do you think we're making a difference?" Jackson asked, breaking the silence. His tone was thoughtful, reflecting the weight of their responsibilities. Maya considered his words. "I have to believe we are. Every supply line we disrupt, every communication we intercept, it all adds up. We're not just fighting for survival, we're fighting for a future." Jackson smiled, and for a moment the tension lifted. It was moments like these that reminded Maya of the bond they shared. Their friendship had grown deeper through the battles, and the unspoken connection between them was a source of strength. As they continued their reconnaissance, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The silence felt too heavy, the air thick with an impending sense of danger. "We need to be on high alert," she said, her voice low. Just then, a rustle in the bushes caught their attention. Maya signaled for Jackson to take cover, and they crouched behind a large rock formation. As they peered through the foliage, they spotted a group of Xyler soldiers, their conversation low and urgent. "Patrols have increased along the northern flank," one soldier said. "We need to tighten our defenses." Maya exchanged a glance with Jackson, realizing they had stumbled upon vital intel. "We have to get this back to Elena," she whispered. Carefully, they began to back away, but just as they turned, a branch snapped beneath Jackson's foot. The Xyler soldiers whipped around, their eyes narrowing as they spotted the two humans. "Run!" Maya shouted, adrenaline surging as they sprinted back through the trees. Blaster fire erupted behind them, the sounds echoing through the forest as they ducked and dodged, weaving through the underbrush. Maya felt the familiar thrill of danger, but this time it was laced with a deep-seated fear of failure. They couldn't afford to be captured. The intel they had was crucial. "Keep going," Jackson urged, his voice cutting through the chaos. Maya pushed herself harder, adrenaline pumping through her veins as she felt the ground beneath her shift. They raced toward their extraction point, the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind them. Just when they thought they were safe, an explosive blast detonated nearby, throwing Maya off balance. She hit the ground hard, pain shooting through her body. Dazed, she looked up to see Jackson still on his feet, his expression a mix of determination and panic. "Get up, Maya, we have to move," he yelled, extending a hand to help her. Gripping his hand, she pulled herself up, shaking off the dizziness. "I'm okay, let's go." They continued their flight, and finally, they spotted their extraction ship in the distance. Relief surged through them, propelling them forward. Just as they neared the ship, Xyler soldiers appeared, cutting them off. "No!" Maya shouted, frustration boiling over. They couldn't be stopped now. In a split second, Jackson reacted, pushing Maya behind him as he squared off against the advancing soldiers. "I'll hold them off. Get to the ship." "Are you crazy? I'm not leaving you," Maya protested, but Jackson was already moving, his determination palpable. "Just go. I'll be right behind you," he insisted. With a heavy heart, Maya turned and sprinted toward the ship, adrenaline driving her. She could hear the sounds of battle behind her, but she didn't look back. They needed to escape, and she had to trust that Jackson would make it. As she reached the ship, she quickly called for the pilot to prepare for takeoff. "Hurry, we have to go now," she shouted, glancing back at the chaos unfolding behind her. Jackson fought valiantly against the Xyler, holding his ground despite overwhelming odds. Maya's heart raced as she waited for him, anxiety gnawing at her insides. She couldn't lose him, not now. Finally, just as the last Xyler soldier fell, Jackson sprinted toward the ship, panting and bloodied but alive. Relief flooded through Maya as she helped him aboard. "Go, go," she urged the pilot, her voice urgent. The ship lifted off, and as they ascended into the sky, Maya took a moment to catch her breath. They had made it, but the weight of the near loss lingered heavily in the air. Once they were in orbit, the tension in the ship began to ease. Maya turned to Jackson, her heart still racing. "You're insane for trying to hold them off like that," she said, trying to keep her tone light. "Maybe, but I couldn't let them get you," he replied, a smirk on his face despite the fatigue in his eyes. Elena's voice crackled through the comm system. "You two better have good news for me. What did you find?" Maya shared the intel they had gathered, explaining the increased patrols along the northern flank and how it could change their strategy for future missions. Elena listened intently, her expression serious. "Good work, both of you," she said once Maya finished. "This intel is crucial. We'll need to discuss our next steps." As they made their way back to the base, Maya felt a sense of pride swell within her. They had faced danger head-on and come out stronger. Each mission had reinforced their bonds, but there was still much work to be done. Over the next few weeks, as they prepared for their next operation, Maya found herself reflecting on their evolving relationships. The emotional barriers that had once held her back were slowly dissolving. Jackson had become more than just a teammate. He was a friend, someone she could trust implicitly. One evening, as they debriefed after another successful operation, Maya noticed Jackson glancing at her with an intensity she hadn't seen before. The air was thick with unspoken words, and Maya felt her heart race. "Is everything okay?" she asked, meeting his gaze. Jackson hesitated, his expression conflicted. "I just wanted to say, I know we've been through a lot together. You mean a lot to me, Maya." The weight of his words hung in the air, and Maya felt a rush of warmth. You mean a lot to me too, Jackson. We've grown together, and I can't imagine doing this without you. His smile widened, a mixture of relief and hope in his eyes. I just want you to know that I've got your back always. The moment felt significant, a turning point in their relationship. As they continued their mission, the unspoken connection between them began to blossom into something deeper, something that transcended friendship. Meanwhile, Elena observed their dynamic with a knowing smile. She had seen the bond grow, and her heart swelled with pride for both of them. The team was stronger than ever, their friendships evolving alongside their skills as soldiers. The air was electric with tension as Maya Chen, now 29, stood before the holographic display in the command center, a map of the Xylar stronghold on Varanth light before her. This mission was unlike any they had undertaken before. It was a full-scale assault, a chance to cripple the Xylar once and for all. She could feel the weight of her team's expectations resting on her shoulders. But more than that, she could feel the weight of her own convictions. Beside her, Jackson, now 25, leaned over the display, his brow furrowed in concentration. Their relationship had deepened considerably since the last mission. Their late-night discussions, shared fears, and undeniable chemistry had created an unbreakable bond. In the heat of battle, they had become each other's anchors, and now, standing on the brink of a significant confrontation, that bond felt more crucial than ever. We'll need to split into 3 teams, Maya said, her voice steady as she laid out the plan. Elena, you'll take Team Alpha to breach the eastern perimeter. Jackson and I will lead Team Bravo straight for the command center. The rest will create a diversion on the outskirts. Elena, now 38, and an experienced leader, nodded thoughtfully. Make sure we have enough firepower. The Xylar won't go down without a fight. Jackson glanced at Maya, a spark of excitement in his eyes. We've trained for this. We're ready. Maya met his gaze, the shared resolve igniting a fire within her. We will be, but we also need to stick to the plan. No heroics, no improvisation. As they finalized the details, the reality of what lay ahead loomed large. This wasn't just a mission. It was a pivotal moment in their fight against the Xylar. It would test their skills, their teamwork, and the strength of their bonds. The day of the assault dawned ominously, the sky overcast and heavy. Maya stood in front of her team, now assembled and ready for battle. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding with adrenaline and purpose. Listen up. Today, we take the fight to the Xylar, she began, her voice cutting through the chatter. We've trained for this, we've prepared for this, and we will succeed. Remember what we're fighting for: our freedom, our families, and each other. No one gets left behind. As the team cheered, Maya felt a swell of pride and determination. They were more than just soldiers. They were a family forged in the fires of war. Each of them had faced their own demons, and together they had grown stronger. With the final words of encouragement echoing in her mind, they boarded the transport ship, ready to embark on what could be a decisive moment in the war. The transport landed just outside the Xylar stronghold under the cover of darkness. As they disembarked, Maya could feel the tension in the air, thick with anticipation. The distant sounds of the Xylar stronghold buzzed with activity, and the weight of their mission pressed down on them. Teams, move out, she ordered, her voice sharp and clear. Maya, Jackson, and Team Bravo crept through the shadows, moving closer to the command center. They navigated the perimeter with caution, their training kicking in as they executed the plan they had prepared so meticulously. Stay low and stay quiet, Jackson whispered, his eyes scanning the area for any signs of movement. Maya nodded, her heart racing. The familiar thrill of combat surged through her, but this time it was mixed with a sense of purpose. They had come too far to falter now. As they approached the command center, the first major obstacle appeared: a heavily armed Xylar patrol. Maya quickly signaled for her team to halt. We need a distraction, she murmured, her mind racing through potential strategies. Leave that to me, Jackson said, a confident grin spreading across his face. Before she could protest, he slipped away into the darkness, his movements fluid and calculated. Jackson, be careful, she called after him, but he was already gone. As Maya and the rest of the team watched, Jackson stealthily moved closer to the patrol. He used a small device to create a diversion, and a loud explosion erupted some distance away. The Xylar soldiers immediately shifted their focus, rushing toward the noise. "Now," Maya commanded, leading her team into the breach. They slipped past the distracted guards, making their way into the command center. Maya's heart raced as they approached the control room, the very heart of the Xylar operations. Inside, the room was filled with blinking consoles and the faint hum of technology. Maya and her team quickly set to work, planting explosives and gathering intel on Xylar operations. "Data is downloading now," Jackson said, his voice steady as he hacked into the mainframe. "This will give us a leg up on their strategies." Just then, an alarm blared, piercing the air with urgency. "They know we're here," Maya shouted, her mind racing. "We need to finish up and get out." "Almost done," Jackson replied, fingers flying over the console. But as he spoke, the door to the control room burst open, and a squad of Xylar soldiers flooded in, blasters raised. "Take cover," Maya shouted, instinctively pushing Jackson behind her. Blaster fire erupted, and Maya ducked, returning fire as her team scrambled for safety. The chaos was disorienting, but in the midst of it, she felt the weight of responsibility for her team. She needed to protect them. "Jackson, finish the download. We can't leave without it," she yelled, focusing her fire on the advancing Xylar. "Almost there," he called back, sweat beading on his forehead. Elena's voice crackled through the comms. "Team Bravo, do you need backup?" "Negative. We're almost finished," Maya replied, determination surging through her. "Just cover our exit." Finally, with a triumphant beep, Jackson shouted, "Got it! Let's move!" As they turned to escape, Maya felt a pang of fear for Jackson. They raced back toward the entrance, blaster fire ringing in their ears. The chaos of battle enveloped them, but they pressed on, determined to make it out alive. Just as they reached the exit, Maya felt a sharp pain in her side. She staggered, instinctively reaching for her wound. "No!" Jackson shouted, turning back to her. "I'm fine. Keep going," Maya insisted, though her vision blurred. "Not without you," Jackson yelled, moving back toward her. Maya shook her head, feeling a mix of desperation and urgency. "You have to go. Get the intel back to Elena. I'll hold them off." "Are you crazy?" he replied, panic rising in his voice. "I'm not leaving you," Jackson shouted, stepping closer. In that moment, something inside Maya shifted. She realized how deeply their relationship had grown, not just as soldiers, but as individuals who cared for one another. "Jackson, you need to trust me. I can hold them off. Just go." Tears filled his eyes, but he nodded, fear and determination etched across his face. "I won't forget this. I promise." As Jackson sprinted toward the exit, Maya took a deep breath, readying herself for the fight. She turned to face the oncoming Xylar soldiers, adrenaline surging through her veins. Blaster fire erupted again, and she fought fiercely, the weight of her weapon a comforting reminder of her purpose. Each shot was aimed, every movement deliberate. She was fighting not just for her life, but for Jackson, for her team, and for the future they were all working toward. As dawn broke over the battlefield, the remnants of the Xylar stronghold smoldered in the distance. Maya lay in a medical bay aboard the extraction ship, her wounds tended to, but her mind was racing with the events of the previous day. The mission had been successful. They had crippled the Xylar operations and gathered invaluable intel. But at what cost? Jackson sat beside her, his eyes dark with concern. "You scared me back there," he said softly, his voice trembling slightly. "You shouldn't have stayed behind." Maya reached out, squeezing his hand. "I had to. I couldn't let them capture me or you. We're in this together, remember?" "Yeah, but that doesn't mean I want to lose you," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. The weight of his words hung between them, a mix of fear and vulnerability that brought them even closer. "You won't lose me," Maya reassured him, her heart aching at the thought of what could have happened. "We're stronger together." As the ship continued its journey back to base, Maya reflected on their evolving relationship. They had fought together, faced death together, and emerged on the other side, stronger for it. The connection they shared had deepened into something profound, a partnership built on trust, respect, and something that felt undeniably like love. The aftermath of their successful assault on the Xylar stronghold resonated through the Alliance as victory celebrations erupted in the base. Maya Chen, now 29, stood on the balcony overlooking the bustling camp, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. The cheers and laughter of her comrades echoed in her ears, but beneath the surface, she felt a mix of elation and apprehension. The mission had transformed their fortunes. It had also deepened the emotional stakes. With Jackson by her side, the bond they shared had evolved from camaraderie to something deeper, something she could no longer ignore. But along with her feelings came uncertainty about what it would mean for their future. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jackson joined her on the balcony. "You okay?" he asked, his brow furrowed in concern. "You've been a bit quiet since we got back." Maya turned to him, her heart racing. "Just thinking about everything that's happened. This victory feels monumental, but I can't shake the feeling that we're still in the thick of it." Jackson nodded, his expression serious. "I get that. The Xylar won't let this setback go unpunished. They'll come back stronger. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." She appreciated his pragmatism, but a part of her yearned for a moment of normalcy amidst the chaos. "Can we take a breather? Just for a night?" she suggested, her voice softer now. A smile broke through Jackson's tension. "I think we deserve it. How about a quiet dinner? Just the two of us?" Maya felt a thrill at the idea. "That sounds perfect." As the celebrations continued below, Maya and Jackson made their way to a secluded area of the camp where they could enjoy a simple meal. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the ground, and the stars began to peek through the twilight sky. They sat on a makeshift blanket, sharing rations and stories. Maya found comfort in Jackson's presence, and for the first time in a while, she felt free to laugh and let her guard down. "I still can't believe you stayed behind during that firefight," Jackson said, shaking his head in disbelief. "You really thought you could take them all on by yourself?" Maya smirked, rolling her eyes playfully. "I had to protect you. It was a strategic decision." "Strategic? More like reckless," he teased, nudging her playfully. "But I'm glad you're okay. I don't know what I'd do if something happened to you." The gravity of his words hung in the air, and for a moment Maya met his gaze, the unspoken feelings swirling between them. "I feel the same way about you," she admitted, her heart pounding. They fell into a comfortable silence, the sounds of celebration fading into the background as they focused on each other. The connection they had forged through battle now felt like the foundation of something more profound. As the weeks rolled on, the Alliance began to regroup and refocus. The celebrations had morphed into strategic planning sessions, with commanders and officers analyzing the gathered intel to prepare for the Xylar's next moves. Maya and Jackson had settled into a rhythm, their partnership growing stronger with each passing day. Maya, however, couldn't shake a feeling of unease. With every training exercise, every briefing, she felt the weight of expectation growing heavier. The higher-ups had recognized her leadership potential, and while it was flattering, it also scared her. One evening, as she studied battle plans in the war room, Elena approached, a knowing smile on her face. "You've been working non-stop. You should take a break." "I can't," Maya replied, her voice firm. "There's too much at stake. We need to stay ahead of the Xylar." Elena crossed her arms, her expression softening. "You're doing incredible work, but you're human. Burnout won't help anyone. Remember, we're all in this together." Maya sighed, feeling the truth in Elena's words. "I know, but I can't help but feel responsible. I'm in charge of the team, and I need to make the right decisions." Elena stepped closer, her tone gentle but firm. "Being a leader doesn't mean you have to shoulder the burden alone. Lean on your team. You have Jackson, me, and everyone else. We believe in you." As Elena spoke, Maya glanced over to Jackson, who was deep in discussion with another officer. The warmth of camaraderie surged within her, but so did the weight of responsibility. "I just don't want to let anyone down," she confessed. "You won't. Just remember, you're not alone in this," Elena reassured her before leaving the room. Maya took a moment to breathe, letting Elena's words sink in. She needed to allow herself to rely on others to share the burden. But that was easier said than done. The atmosphere in the base shifted when reports of Xyler activity intensified. They were regrouping, and it became clear that their retaliation was imminent. Maya gathered her team, her heart pounding as she prepared to address them. "Listen up, everyone," she called, drawing their attention. "We've received intel that the Xyler are planning a major offensive. We need to be ready." The team exchanged glances, their expressions serious. Jackson stepped forward. "What's our plan, Maya?" Maya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of leadership pressing down on her. "We'll fortify our defenses and prepare for a counterstrike. Jackson, I want you to lead the training exercises for our new recruits. They need to be ready for the worst." "Got it," he replied, determination in his voice. As they moved into the planning phase, Maya felt a sense of purpose returning. This was what she had trained for. The challenges ahead would only make her stronger. Days turned into weeks as they prepared for the impending attack. Tensions ran high, but Maya focused on rallying her team, ensuring they were equipped both physically and mentally. The trust she built with her team blossomed, reinforcing their commitment to one another. Finally, the day arrived when the Xyler launched their attack. The alarms blared throughout the base, and Maya felt her heart race as she quickly gathered her team. "This is it. Stay focused and stick to the plan," she shouted, adrenaline surging through her. As the Xyler forces breached the perimeter, chaos erupted. Maya led her team into the fray, her instincts kicking in as she maneuvered through the battlefield. The sounds of blaster fire filled the air, and she felt a surge of determination wash over her. Jackson fought by her side, their movements synchronized through countless hours of training and shared experiences. Each time she glanced at him, she felt the bond they shared deepen, the stakes of their mission fueling her resolve. "Cover me," Maya shouted, darting toward a barricade. Jackson fired at the advancing Xyler soldiers, his focus unwavering. Maya ducked behind cover, scanning the area for their next move. "We need to flank them. Jackson, can you draw their fire while I circle around?" "On it," he replied, a fierce determination in his eyes. As Jackson executed the plan, Maya felt a surge of pride. He was more than just her partner. He was a capable leader in his own right. They were a force to be reckoned with, and together they could take on anything. The battle raged on, each moment stretching into eternity. Maya's heart raced as she fought to protect her team, the adrenaline propelling her forward. Each victory felt hard-won, but the camaraderie among her team fueled her strength. In the midst of the chaos, she caught a glimpse of Elena coordinating the defense, her presence steadying the troops. Maya admired her mentor's strength, drawing inspiration from her unwavering resolve. They were all in this together, a collective force standing against the tide of adversity. As the battle intensified, the tide began to turn. The Xyler forces started to retreat, their morale breaking under the weight of the Alliance's counterstrike. Maya felt a surge of triumph, but as she moved to regroup with Jackson, a sudden explosion rocked the ground. Maya was thrown to the side, pain erupting in her leg as she landed awkwardly. Dazed, she glanced around, the chaos swirling around her. "Jackson!" she shouted, panic gripping her heart. She pushed herself up, ignoring the pain radiating from her injury. Adrenaline coursed through her veins as she searched for Jackson. She spotted him across the battlefield, fending off Xyler soldiers with determination. Relief flooded her, but it quickly turned to dread as she saw a soldier aim at him. "Jackson, watch out!" she screamed, her voice cutting through the noise. Time seemed to slow as she lunged forward, pushing him out of the way just as the blaster fired. The shot hit her shoulder, and pain exploded through her body as she fell to the ground. "No," Jackson's voice rang out, filled with anguish. He turned to her, his expression a mix of horror and determination. "Maya." Despite the pain, Maya forced herself to focus. "I'm okay, keep fighting," she urged, but the darkness was creeping in at the edges of her vision. Maya lay on the ground, her shoulder throbbing with pain as she struggled to maintain consciousness. The battlefield around her blurred into chaos. Blaster fire, shouts, and the distant rumble of explosions filled her ears. But above it all, one voice broke through, Jackson's. "Maya, stay with me." His voice was urgent, a lifeline in the storm. She could see him rushing toward her, pushing through the melee, determination etched on his face. "Go," she gasped, gritting her teeth against the pain. "We need to." "No, I'm not leaving you." He reached her side, dropping to his knees. "What do I need to do?" Maya's vision wavered, but she focused on him, willing herself to remain alert. "The med kit ... in my pack," she managed, her breath coming in ragged gasps. He quickly grabbed the kit and started working on her wound, his hands shaking slightly. "You're going to be okay. Just hold on." I can't hold on much longer," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jackson's eyes met hers, a storm of fear and determination swirling within them. "You will. You're a fighter, Maya. Remember all the times we've gotten through this together? You've survived worse." His words ignited a flicker of strength within her. She thought of the battles they had fought, the trust they had built. They were a team, and she couldn't let him down now. "You're right," she whispered, her resolve hardening. "We need to finish this." He applied pressure to her shoulder, the pain sharp but grounding. "We will," he promised, his voice steady. "But first, let's get you out of here." With Jackson's help, Maya pushed herself up, wincing as she moved. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, dulling the sharp edge of the pain. "We need to regroup with the others," she insisted, her determination rekindled. Together, they maneuvered through the chaos, the bond between them deepening with each shared glance. As they fought their way back to their team, Maya realized how vital Jackson had become in her life, not just as a comrade in arms, but as a partner in every sense of the word. The battle had ended, but the aftermath weighed heavily on Maya's heart. They had pushed back the Xyler forces, but at a cost. Many lives had been lost, and the memory of the chaos haunted her. As she sat in the medical bay, being treated for her shoulder wound, she reflected on the fragility of life in war. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, a stark reminder of the injuries they all sustained, both physical and emotional. Jackson sat beside her, his face a mask of concern. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly, his hand resting gently on her uninjured arm. "I'll be okay," she replied, forcing a smile. "Just a scratch. But what about you? You were right there with me." He shrugged, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "I'm just glad you're okay. It was close." They fell into a comfortable silence, both lost in their thoughts. After a moment, Jackson spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to lose you, Maya. Not now, not ever." His words struck a chord deep within her. She turned to face him fully, the weight of their experiences crashing down. "I feel the same way. We've fought through so much together, and it's made me realize just how important you are to me." Jackson's eyes widened, surprise mixing with relief. "Really? Really," she affirmed, her heart racing. "We've built something incredible, and I don't want to take it for granted anymore." His expression softened, and for a moment, the chaos of the world around them faded away. "I want that too," he said earnestly, "but I also want to make sure we're ready for whatever comes next. This war isn't over." Maya nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. "We'll face it together, like we always have. But I want to be open about how we feel. I can't keep pretending I'm not scared." "Neither can I," he admitted. "But we can be scared together." The intimacy of the moment enveloped them, and for the first time, Maya felt the true weight of their bond. It wasn't just about survival, it was about vulnerability, trust, and the promise of something deeper. As the weeks progressed, the base began to recover from the aftermath of the battle. The Alliance strategized for the future, analyzing the Xylers' movements and preparing for the next confrontation. Maya's shoulder had healed, but the emotional scars of the recent battle lingered. She found herself more determined than ever to not only lead her team, but also foster the relationships that mattered most. During a strategy meeting, Elena leaned over the table, her eyes scanning the gathered officers. "We've made significant progress, but we can't underestimate the Xyler. They'll come back with everything they have." Maya nodded, her focus sharp. "We need to anticipate their moves. If we can predict their strategy, we can counter it effectively." "Agreed," Jackson added, his confidence evident. "We should send out scouts to gather more intel on their positions." As the discussion progressed, Maya felt the weight of leadership settle on her shoulders. She had come so far, but the challenges ahead loomed large. She could feel the eyes of her team on her, each expecting her to deliver. Later that evening, Maya and Jackson stepped outside the command tent. The air was cool and crisp, a welcome relief from the tension inside. "Feeling the pressure?" he asked, leaning against the wall beside her. "A little," she admitted, crossing her arms. "It's just, sometimes I feel like the weight of everyone's expectations is too much." Jackson turned to her, his expression serious. "You're doing an amazing job. You've rallied this team, and they believe in you. Don't forget that." "I know," she said, her voice softening. "But I also want to be real with them. I don't want to be just a figurehead. I want to be a leader they can relate to." He nodded thoughtfully. "That's what makes you such a great leader, Maya. You're not afraid to show vulnerability, to admit when you're scared. That's powerful." She smiled, grateful for his support. "Thanks, Jackson. It means a lot to have you by my side." "Always," he replied, his gaze steady. "We're in this together, remember." As they stood in the quiet night, the stars twinkling above, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed not just with her skills, but with the love and trust she had built with Jackson and her team. The next major confrontation with a Xyler came sooner than expected. Intelligence reports indicated that they were mobilizing for a coordinated attack, and the Alliance needed to act swiftly. Maya gathered her team once more, her heart racing as she laid out the plan. "This is our chance to take the fight to them. We need to be strategic and relentless. If we can disrupt their supply lines, we can cripple their ability to retaliate." Jackson stood at her side, his presence a reassuring anchor. "We've trained for this. We know what we're capable of." Elena stepped forward, her expression fierce. "We need to be united. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone who has been affected by this war." Maya felt the weight of their collective resolve in the air, a tangible energy that surged through her. "Let's show them what the Alliance is made of, together." The team cheered, their spirits high as they prepared for the mission ahead. Maya felt invigorated, a sense of purpose driving her forward. The night of the operation, the air was tense with anticipation. As they approached the Xyler encampment under the cover of darkness, Maya felt a mix of adrenaline and fear. The stakes were higher than ever, and failure was not an option. "Stay sharp, everyone," she whispered, her voice steady as they moved into position. "We stick to the plan. No unnecessary risks." Jackson moved beside her, his gaze focused. "You've got this, Maya. Just lead us, and we'll follow." The initial phase of the operation went smoothly. They moved through the shadows, planting explosives and sabotaging supply lines, each step reinforcing the trust between them. But just as they prepared to retreat, alarms blared. Maya's heart dropped. "We've been compromised. We need to move now." The chaos erupted around them as Xyler soldiers poured out of their encampment, blasters raised. "Fall back," she shouted, adrenaline pumping through her veins. They fought their way through the advancing troops, blaster fire lit the night. Maya felt the weight of her team behind her, their trust in her leadership propelling her forward. In the midst of chaos, Maya's heart raced as she saw Jackson surrounded. He fought fiercely, but the numbers were against him. Her instincts kicked in, overriding the fear threatening to paralyze her. "Jackson," she shouted, desperation fueling her resolve. "I'm coming." "No," he yelled back, his voice firm yet laced with concern. "Get the others out. I'll hold them off." Maya's breath caught in her throat. They had promised to face everything together, yet here he was, ready to sacrifice himself. "We can't leave you," she cried, pushing through the fray, dodging blasts and debris. The turmoil of the battlefield closed in on her, but all she could see was Jackson's determined expression, a reflection of the deep bond they had forged over the months. "We need to be a team," she yelled, refusing to back down. With a surge of determination, she moved closer, relying on the tactical training they had honed together. She spotted an exposed flanking route and quickly calculated her options. "Cover me," she shouted to the rest of the team, who were still regrouping. Before Jackson could protest again, she sprinted toward him, using the terrain to her advantage. As she neared, she activated her comms. "Elena, we need a distraction now." "On it," Elena's voice crackled through the comms, and Maya hoped the plan would work. Moments later, a series of explosive charges detonated on the other side of the encampment, sending shockwaves through the air. The Xylar soldiers turned, momentarily distracted. It was now or never. "Go, go, go," Maya shouted, reaching Jackson's side. "We need to move." He glanced at her, surprise flickering in his eyes, quickly replaced by determination. "I thought I told you to get the others out." "And I thought I told you we're doing this together," she shot back, adrenaline surging. In that instant, they were back in sync, a seamless dance honed by countless battles. They fought back to back, covering each other's vulnerabilities, their bond stronger than ever amidst the chaos. As dawn broke, the battlefield quieted, the echoes of conflict replaced by the distant cries of the wounded. The team regrouped outside the remnants of the Xylar encampment, relief washing over them, but mingling with grief for the losses endured. Maya leaned against a fallen piece of debris, catching her breath. Jackson approached, his expression a mix of pride and worry. "You did well out there," he said, his voice low. "I didn't think you'd come back for me." "I'm not leaving you behind." "Not now, not ever," she replied firmly, the weight of her promise solidifying in her chest. He studied her, and for a moment, the world around them faded. "You really mean that?" "Of course I do," she replied, her heart racing. "We're in this together, no matter what." Jackson stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. What if something happens? What if we don't make it?" "Then we fight," she answered, her voice steady. "But I won't let fear dictate our choices. Not anymore." He nodded slowly, a hint of a smile breaking through. "You're right. Fear has no place in this fight. We're stronger together." Their connection deepened in that moment, forged in the fires of battle. The gravity of their feelings hung in the air, a silent promise echoing between them. In the aftermath of the battle, the alliance began to rebuild and strategize for the future. The scars of their recent losses were fresh, yet there was an undeniable sense of unity among the remaining members. Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose, determined to honor the fallen by ensuring their sacrifices meant something. "Everyone, listen up," she called during a gathering. "We've faced immense challenges, but we've come through stronger. We owe it to those we lost to keep fighting, to keep pushing forward." Elena stood beside her, nodding in agreement. "We've learned from our experiences. It's time to focus on what lies ahead." As they laid out plans for upcoming missions, Maya felt a newfound confidence in her leadership. She had grown alongside her team, learning the importance of vulnerability and openness. Later that evening, Maya and Jackson sat together on a makeshift bench outside the command tent. The stars twinkled overhead, casting a serene glow over the camp. "You were amazing out there," he said, turning to her. "You've really stepped into your role as a leader." "Thanks," she replied, feeling a warmth in her chest. "But it's not just me. We're all in this together. I couldn't do it without you." He smiled, a soft look in his eyes. "I just follow your lead." Maya felt a flutter of emotions as she considered their journey. "You know, I've realized that this war has changed me. It's forced me to confront my fears, my vulnerabilities, but it's also shown me what truly matters." "And what's that?" he asked, leaning closer. "The people we fight for, the bonds we create. I want to make sure we don't lose sight of that amidst the chaos," she said, her voice earnest. "Agreed," Jackson replied. "It's easy to get lost in the fight, but we have to remember what we're fighting for, each other." Their gazes locked, and in that moment, Maya felt the weight of unspoken words hang between them. "There's something I need to tell you," she began, her heart racing. "I care about you, Jackson, more than I can express." "I care about you too, Maya. You've become my anchor in all this madness," he confessed, his voice steady. As they spoke, a sense of clarity washed over Maya. They had weathered storms together, their bond deepening in the face of adversity. The world around them may have been chaotic, but they had found something extraordinary amidst the chaos. As winter settled in, the Alliance prepared for the next phase of their strategy against the Xyler. The frigid air bit at their skin, but the camaraderie within the camp kept their spirits high. Maya led training sessions, pushing her team to hone their skills while emphasizing teamwork and communication. With Jackson at her side, their synergy was evident as they worked seamlessly together, encouraging others to find their strengths. One chilly afternoon, as they took a break, Elena approached. "You two are really something," she remarked, a knowing smile on her face. "I've seen how you support each other." Maya exchanged a glance with Jackson, warmth flooding her cheeks. "We just work well together." Elena raised an eyebrow, clearly not convinced. "Sure, that's part of it. But it's more than that. You've both grown a lot, and it shows." Maya appreciated Elena's insight, but felt a twinge of vulnerability. "It's easy to get caught up in the mission. I want to make sure we stay grounded." "You're doing great, Maya," Elena reassured her. "Just don't forget to take care of yourselves too." As the days turned into weeks, the camaraderie within the Alliance deepened. Maya and Jackson's relationship blossomed further, their connection becoming a source of strength for both. They found moments of respite amid the chaos, sharing stories, dreams, and laughter, reminding each other of the life waiting beyond the war. With the new year came a renewed sense of hope, but the threat of the Xyler loomed large. Intelligence reports indicated that they were regrouping, and the Alliance needed to be prepared for their next move. Maya gathered her team once more, her heart pounding as she laid out the latest intel. "We have to anticipate their strategy. They're likely planning something big, and we need to be ready to counter it." Jackson nodded, his expression serious. "We should reinforce our defenses and increase patrols. We can't afford to be caught off guard." As they strategized, Maya felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her. "We've come so far, and I know we can face whatever comes our way. Together." "Together," Jackson echoed, his gaze steady. The meeting concluded, but Maya's mind raced with thoughts of the impending conflict. She wanted to protect her team and ensure their safety, but she also felt a growing urgency to take the fight to the Xyler. That evening, as the camp settled into a familiar rhythm, Maya found herself outside, staring up at the stars. The night was clear, and the chill in the air was invigorating. Jackson joined her, his presence a comforting warmth against the cold. "Can't sleep?" he asked, leaning against a nearby tree. "Just thinking," she replied, her breath visible in the cool air. "About what's next?" He fell silent, understanding the weight of her thoughts. "It's tough, I know. But we've come this far. We can't give up hope." "I won't," she assured him, a fierce determination igniting within her. "But I also want to make sure we're prepared for whatever lies ahead." Maya's resolve strengthened as she stood beside Jackson under the stars. She was now 26, a fierce leader with a determination that had been honed through months of conflict and struggle. I want us to be ready for anything, she reiterated, her voice resolute. This war has taken too much from us already. Jackson nodded, his dark hair tousled by the night breeze. At 28, he had seen the toll of battle and loss, but remained a steady presence in her life. We will be. I trust you, and so does the team. They believe in your vision. His words gave her a surge of confidence. Thanks, Jackson. That means a lot coming from you. Their connection had deepened over the months, forged in the fires of war, but tempered with moments of laughter, shared fears, and dreams of a peaceful future. Yet, even with their evolving relationship, the war loomed over them like a dark cloud. The following week brought new intelligence about the Xyler forces. They were moving in larger numbers, and the alliance needed to respond strategically. Maya convened her team, a blend of trusted friends and skilled fighters who had become her second family. Everyone, listen up, she began, her heart pounding as she surveyed the faces of her comrades. The Xyler are planning a major offensive. We need to reinforce our defenses and prepare for an assault. But we also need to think outside the box, attack their supply lines, create diversions. Elena raised a hand, her brow furrowed in thought. What if we send a small team to disrupt their operations? If we can take out their supplies, we can weaken their offensive. Maya's eyes lit up. That's a great idea, but it'll be risky. We need volunteers who are willing to take that chance. Jackson stepped forward, his expression unwavering. I'll go. I know the territory, and I can help navigate the safest route. Maya felt a flicker of anxiety at the thought of him going into danger, but she also recognized his determination. Are you sure? It's going to be dangerous. I'm sure, he replied, his tone firm. We're in this together. If I can help make a difference, I will. Their eyes locked, and she could see the resolve in his gaze. All right, she said, taking a deep breath. But I want you to promise me you'll be careful. I promise, he said, reaching out to squeeze her hand briefly. The gesture sent a jolt of warmth through her. As the meeting concluded, the weight of their choices lingered in the air. Maya knew they were stepping into the unknown, but her heart swelled with pride for her team. The operation was set in motion. Under the cover of darkness, Maya's team divided into groups. She and Elena would stay back to coordinate the defense, while Jackson led the small team toward the Xyler supply lines. Stay safe, Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady as she watched Jackson prepare for the mission. And remember, we'll be waiting for you. He nodded, determination etched on his face. I'll be back before you know it. As he and his team disappeared into the night, Maya's heart raced with anxiety. She knew this was a crucial mission, but the thought of him facing danger alone weighed heavily on her. The hours felt like days as Maya and Elena monitored the situation from their command post. They stayed in constant communication with Jackson's team, but as the night wore on, tension filled the air. Maya, we're getting reports of heavy Xyler movement near their supply lines, one of the scouts relayed over the comms. It's not looking good. Maya's stomach dropped. Jackson, do you copy? She called into the comm. No response. Try again, Elena urged, her brows knitted in concern. Jackson, respond. Maya's voice was laced with panic. Still no answer. As anxiety gnawed at her, Maya paced the room, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. We can't wait any longer, she said, determination taking hold. We need to send a team to find them. Elena nodded, her expression resolute. I'll gather some volunteers. We can't leave them out there. As they rallied a small group, Maya felt a mix of fear and resolve. They had come too far to lose anyone now. As dawn broke, Maya and her team set out, navigating the treacherous terrain toward the last known location of Jackson and his team. Each step felt heavier, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. Hours passed, and they moved cautiously, using the cover of trees and rocks. Finally, they heard distant blaster fire, and Maya's heart leapt into her throat. That's them, she exclaimed, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Stay low, Elena commanded. leading the way as they crept closer to the source of the sound. When they arrived at the scene, the sight was chaotic. Xylar soldiers swarmed, and in the center, she spotted Jackson and his team, engaged in fierce combat. Her heart raced with a mix of relief and fear. "Jackson!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We're here!" He turned, his eyes lighting up momentarily before narrowing with determination. "Maya, get back! We're pinned down!" Without hesitating, Maya and her team surged forward, joining the fray. Blaster fire erupted around them, but they fought with a shared purpose, knowing they had to protect each other. "Focus on covering the exit," Jackson shouted, directing his team. "We need to fall back to the ridge." Maya moved with precision, adrenaline surging as she provided cover fire. She could see the strain on Jackson's face, the determination in his eyes. They had become an extension of each other, seamlessly moving through the chaos. As they fought their way back, Maya caught a glimpse of Elena, who had moved to protect their flank. Suddenly, a blaster shot rang out, striking Elena in the shoulder. She stumbled, and a rush of fear swept through Maya. "Elena!" she shouted, adrenaline fueling her as she turned to help her friend. "Go!" Elena cried, her voice strained. "I'll be okay, just keep moving." Maya hesitated, torn between her desire to help Elena and the urgency of their escape. "No, I can't leave you." "Go," Elena insisted, pushing Maya forward. "We'll regroup. I'll hold them off as long as I can." Maya's heart ached as she met Elena's determined gaze. "I'm coming back for you." "Promise," Elena shouted, as she fired back at the advancing Xylar soldiers. Maya felt the weight of her words as she turned to Jackson. "We need to go, now." Together, they made their way through the chaos, navigating the gunfire and explosions. Maya could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her, the fear of loss surging as they finally reached the ridge. They regrouped at the top of the ridge, panting and shaken. Maya's heart raced as she scanned the area for Elena, but the chaos of the battlefield had obscured her friend's position. "We need to go back for her," she insisted, desperation clawing at her throat. "Wait," Jackson said, his voice calm but firm. "We need to assess the situation first. We can't risk our lives for a rescue without knowing what we're facing." "No," Maya snapped, her heart pounding with fear. "She's out there, and we can't leave her." "Maya, listen to me," he said, stepping closer. "If we rush in without a plan, we could end up losing everyone. We need to regroup, gather intel, and figure out how to go back for her safely." His eyes were filled with concern, but beneath it lay a fierce determination. "I won't let anything happen to you or Elena, but we have to be smart about this." Tears filled her eyes as the weight of their situation settled in. She felt helpless, torn between loyalty to her friend and the responsibility of leading her team. "I can't just leave her," she whispered, her voice breaking. Jackson reached out, taking her hand in his. "We'll find her, I promise. But we have to do it right." Maya took a deep breath, trying to rein in her emotions. She could see the determination in Jackson's eyes, the same resolve that had seen them through countless battles. "Okay," she said finally, her voice steadying. "But we have to move quickly." They descended the ridge, regrouping with the rest of their team. As they began to strategize, Maya felt a sense of purpose rising within her. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for each other, for their friends, and for the future they all believed in. The next few days were filled with tension and uncertainty. Maya and her team continued to monitor the Xylar movements, hoping for any sign of Elena. The nights were restless, filled with the weight of worry and loss. Maya and Jackson sat side by side outside the command tent, the cool night air wrapping around them like a shroud. Maya was now 26, having grown in courage and resolve over the past year. Jackson, at 28, had become her unwavering anchor through the storm of war. "Maya," Jackson said softly, breaking the heavy silence that had settled over them. "Are you okay?" She leaned back against the rough wood of the bench, staring up at the stars. "I don't know," she replied honestly. I keep thinking about Elena. She's out there, and we haven't heard anything." His gaze was steady, filled with empathy. "It's hard, but we're doing everything we can. We'll find her." Maya appreciated his reassurance, but doubt gnawed at her. "What if we're too late? What if we never find her?" Jackson turned to her, his expression intense. "You can't think that way. We've lost too much already. We need to focus on what we can do now." His words hung in the air, a reminder of the resilience they needed to embody. "You're right," she admitted, a small sigh escaping her lips. "We have to keep moving forward, for her." As they spoke, Maya felt a growing bond between them. The war had forged a connection that was deeper than friendship, something that felt almost sacred in its intensity. She took a moment to study Jackson's face, lit by the faint light of the campfire. "Jackson, do you ever think about what happens after this? Once the war is over?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked thoughtful for a moment, the weight of her question sinking in. "Every day, I think about a world where we don't have to fight anymore, where we can just live. But I also worry about what we might lose in the process." Maya nodded, understanding the unspoken fears that lurked beneath his words. "What if we're not the same people we were before all this?" "We'll never be the same," he replied, a hint of sadness in his tone. "But that doesn't mean we can't be better. We can carry what we've learned and build something new." Her heart swelled at his optimism. "You really believe that?" "I do," he said, his gaze unwavering. "We've been through hell and back together. That means something." In that moment, something shifted. Maya felt an undeniable urge to bridge the emotional gap that had grown between them. "I believe in us, Jackson. I believe we can get through this together." As if sensing her vulnerability, he moved closer, their shoulders brushing against each other. "Together," he echoed, the warmth of his presence sending a comforting shiver down her spine. The next few days were filled with increased patrols and tense waiting. Maya spent her nights poring over maps and reports, determined to gather any intelligence that might lead to Elena's recovery. Each time a message came through the comms, her heart raced with hope, only to sink when the news was grim. "Maya," Jackson said one evening as they stood on a hill overlooking the encampment, "you need to take a break. You're pushing yourself too hard." "I can't," she replied, her voice tinged with frustration. "What if we miss something? What if Elena needs us?" "She wouldn't want you to wear yourself thin," he said, gently resting a hand on her shoulder. "You need to be at your best if we're going to find her." His touch sent a bolt of warmth through her. She sighed, the weight of her responsibilities settling heavily on her shoulders. "I just wish there was more we could do." "There is," he replied, his tone firm yet comforting. "We keep strategizing, we keep gathering intel, and we keep our hope alive. That's how we honor her." Maya nodded, feeling the warmth of his words seep into her resolve. She took a step back, breathing in the cool air, grounding herself in the moment. "You're right. Thank you, Jackson." He smiled softly, the tension in her chest easing slightly. "Just remember, we're a team. You're not alone in this." The tension reached a boiling point as the Alliance finally received a lead on Elena's whereabouts. A scout reported sightings of Xyler troops transporting prisoners near an abandoned outpost not far from their base. Maya's heart raced at the news. "We need to move quickly," she declared, her mind racing with possibilities. "If Elena is among those captured, we can't let them transport her anywhere else." Jackson stepped forward, his brow furrowed with concern. "We need to approach this carefully. It's likely a trap." "I understand that," Maya replied, frustration bubbling to the surface. "But we can't leave her there." "We won't," he assured her. "But we have to plan this out. We need to create a distraction to draw their attention away from the outpost." Elena had always been the strategist of their group, and Maya felt the weight of that loss acutely. "All right," she said, taking a deep breath. "Let's brainstorm." As they worked through the night, drawing up plans and contingencies, Maya felt the sense of urgency propelling her forward. She was determined to bring Elena home, but she also knew that they needed to be smart about their approach. With the sun barely peeking over the horizon, Maya and her team set out toward the outpost, tension palpable in the air. As they neared the location, they could see the faint outline of Xyler soldiers patrolling the area. "Stay low," Jackson instructed, his voice steady. "We need to stick to the shadows." Maya nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. Every step felt crucial. They moved silently, their breaths shallow as they approached the outpost, hidden behind a cluster of trees. The sound of voices drifted from inside, and Maya strained to listen. "I can't believe they think they can keep us here," a familiar voice floated out. Maya's heart skipped a beat. "Elena." Maya turned to Jackson, a surge of hope flooding through her. "That's her. We have to get her out." "Not yet," Jackson warned, holding her back. "We need to wait for the right moment." The tension in the air was thick as they continued to watch the patrols. Maya could see the flicker of movement in the shadows and felt a deep longing to break free from their hiding spot. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they spotted an opening. A group of Xyler soldiers had moved away from the entrance, leaving it unguarded. "Now," Jackson whispered. They sprang into action, rushing toward the entrance. Maya felt adrenaline surging through her veins as she pushed past Jackson, eager to reach her friend. The door swung open, and she dashed inside, her heart racing. The sight inside was both horrifying and hopeful. Elena was tied to a chair, bruised but alive, her eyes widening in surprise as she saw Maya. "Maya," she shouted, relief flooding her voice. "Hang on, I'm getting you out," Maya replied, rushing to her side. Before she could free her, however, Xyler soldiers burst into the room, guns raised. "Stop right there," one shouted. Jackson was right behind her, and together they fought back against the incoming soldiers. Maya's heart raced as she focused on freeing Elena while deflecting blaster fire. "Go, go, go," Jackson shouted, covering their escape. Maya finally managed to cut through the ropes binding Elena, her heart swelling with joy. "You're okay," she exclaimed, pulling her friend into a tight embrace. "I thought I was done for," Elena replied, her voice shaky but filled with relief. They turned as Jackson continued to hold off the soldiers, determination etched on his face. "We need to get out of here now," he shouted, urgency pushing them forward. The three of them rushed through the chaos, the sounds of battle echoing in their ears. Maya felt a surge of triumph as they pushed out of the outpost, but it was quickly overshadowed by the realization that they still needed to escape. As they emerged into the open air, Maya felt a rush of exhilaration, but the reality of their situation quickly set in. They were still in enemy territory, and Xyler troops were hot on their trail. "Over there," Jackson shouted, pointing toward a dense thicket of trees. "We can lose them in there." They sprinted toward the cover, adrenaline propelling them forward. Maya glanced back to see the Xyler soldiers closing in, their shouts echoing through the air. "Keep moving," she urged, her heart racing as they plunged into the underbrush. The thick foliage concealed them as they pressed deeper into the trees. Panting, they finally came to a halt, taking a moment to catch their breath. Maya turned to Elena, relief flooding her senses. "I'm so glad you're okay." Elena smiled weakly, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you." Jackson stood nearby, scanning the area for any signs of pursuit. "We need to keep moving. They'll be searching for us." Maya nodded, the urgency of their situation settling in once again. "Right." Maya, Jackson, and Elena pressed deeper into the forest, the thick canopy above them filtering the sunlight into muted greens and browns. The air was cool and filled with the earthy scent of damp soil and moss. They had made it out of the outpost, but the danger was far from over. Elena, now 25, was visibly shaken but determined. "What's the plan?" she asked, her voice steady despite the situation. The bond between the three of them had shifted dramatically during the past few days, and they could feel the weight of shared experiences pulling them closer together. Maya took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. We need to find a secure location to regroup and assess our options. We can't afford to be caught out here. Jackson glanced around, ever the strategist, his sharp blue eyes scanning their surroundings. There's a clearing about a mile ahead. We can set up a temporary camp there. It'll give us time to recover and plan our next move. Agreed, Maya said, feeling a sense of relief that they had a direction. Let's move. They made their way to the clearing, where the trees opened up to reveal a sunlit patch of grass, dotted with wildflowers. It was a stark contrast to the tension that still clung to them. Once there, they quickly set up a perimeter, establishing a safe zone. Sitting on a log, Maya watched as Elena treated her own wounds with the med kit. "You're lucky," she teased lightly. "You've always been the toughest among us." Elena chuckled softly, her hands deftly wrapping gauze around her bruised shoulder. "Maybe, but don't underestimate the power of good luck." Her smile faded slightly. "I'm just glad to be back with you both. I thought I wouldn't make it out of there." Maya reached out, squeezing her friend's hand. "You're strong, Elena. You've always been the heart of this team. We wouldn't have made it this far without you." Elena's eyes glistened with gratitude. "And I wouldn't have survived if it weren't for you too. You've both changed so much." Jackson, who had been watching from a distance, approached and joined them. "I think we've all changed. The war has a way of forcing us to confront our fears and strengths." His expression grew serious. "But we need to focus on what's next. The Xyler will come looking for us." Maya nodded, the gravity of their situation settling over them like a heavy cloak. "We need to think strategically. We can't keep running forever." Elena looked up, her expression resolute. "What if we turn the tables? We could set a trap for them instead. Use their own tactics against them." Jackson raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "That could work. If we know their patrol routes, we can ambush them when they least expect it." Maya felt a rush of excitement. "Yes, if we can gather intel while also preparing an ambush, we can hit them where it hurts." They began to brainstorm ideas, laying out plans to use the terrain to their advantage. As they worked, Maya felt a deepening respect for her friends. Their camaraderie had become a lifeline, a source of strength that propelled her forward. Over the next few days, they executed their plan. Gathering intelligence on the Xyler patrols became their primary focus. Maya found herself feeling more confident as they set ambushes, utilizing the element of surprise. The thrill of battle coursed through her veins, igniting a fire within that she hadn't realized existed. But as they skirmished with the Xyler, the toll of war began to weigh heavily on her. Each encounter brought loss, and with each victory came the haunting reminder of what they were fighting against. One evening, after a particularly intense skirmish, the three of them sat around a small campfire, exhaustion etched on their faces. The flames flickered, casting shadows that danced around them. "I thought we had them this time," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But they just kept coming." Maya felt the weight of Elena's words. "We'll get stronger," she replied, her voice firm. "We're learning how to adapt. We'll find a way to turn the tide." Jackson remained silent, lost in thought. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy with contemplation. "We've come a long way, but we can't underestimate them. The Xyler are smart and ruthless. We need to be prepared for anything." Elena nodded, though Maya could see the fear flickering behind her eyes. "What if they come after us again? What if we lose everything?" Maya reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Elena's knee. "We won't. We've faced so much already, and we've always found a way to pull through, together." Jackson leaned forward, his gaze intense. "We need to come up with a plan that doesn't just react to their moves, but anticipates them. We can't be on the defensive all the time." Elena nodded, inspired by Jackson's determination. "Then let's strategize. We need to be proactive." The three of them spent the night sketching out plans, driven by a shared purpose that went beyond survival. They were becoming a cohesive unit, their individual strengths complementing one another. As the weeks passed, their ambush tactics began to bear fruit. They inflicted significant damage on the Xyler supply lines, striking swiftly and then retreating into the cover of the forest. Each victory built their confidence and drew them closer together. Maya found herself growing into her role as a leader, her decisions becoming more instinctive and her voice more authoritative. Jackson's steady presence and Elena's unwavering support became her foundation. One evening, after a successful raid, they sat around the campfire once more, the atmosphere lighter than it had been in weeks. Maya looked at her friends, the firelight dancing in their eyes, and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you both," she said, her voice sincere. "You've pushed me to be stronger than I thought I could be." Elena smiled, her spirit shining through. "We're in this together. We always have been." Jackson nodded, a soft smile breaking through his serious demeanor. "And we'll keep fighting together. We're family now." Maya felt a warmth in her chest at his words. It was true. They had become more than just comrades in arms. They were a family forged in the fires of conflict, each of them shaping and supporting the others. As spring approached, the landscape began to change. The forest that had once seemed so dark and foreboding now burst into life, vibrant greens and colors emerging from the earth. Yet beneath the beauty of the season, a dark tension simmered in the air. Maya and her team had made significant progress against the Xyler, but they could feel the enemy's desperation growing. Their skirmishes were becoming more intense, and the Xyler forces were deploying larger units in an effort to reclaim control. On one such day, after a particularly fierce battle, Maya stood with Jackson and Elena, surveying the aftermath. The air was thick with smoke, and the ground was littered with debris. It was a stark reminder of the cost of their victories. "Do you think we're making a difference?" Maya asked quietly, her heart heavy with doubt. Jackson, wiping the sweat from his brow, turned to her. "We are. Every victory counts. We're disrupting their supply lines and weakening their hold." "But at what cost?" she replied, her voice breaking. "We've lost people. It's becoming harder to justify the fight." Elena placed a reassuring hand on Maya's shoulder. "We're fighting for a better future. For the people who can't fight for themselves, we have to remember that." Maya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their choices settle on her. "You're right, but I can't shake this feeling of dread." "We need to stay focused," Jackson said, his tone steady. "We can't let our emotions cloud our judgment. The Xyler will exploit any weakness." As they walked back to their camp, Maya felt a sense of resolve building within her. She wouldn't let fear dictate their actions. They had come too far and sacrificed too much. Days turned into weeks as the Alliance continued their efforts against the Xyler. They had become adept at guerrilla tactics, using the terrain to their advantage. But despite their successes, the enemy began to retaliate with increased ferocity. One evening, as they settled around the fire after a long day of strategizing, a scout rushed into their camp, his face pale and panicked. "Maya, Jackson, Elena, the Xyler are mobilizing. They're planning a major offensive against us." Maya's heart raced. "How much time do we have?" "Less than 24 hours, the scout replied, his voice tense. "They're coming for us hard." "Then we need to prepare," Jackson said, his voice resolute. "We can't let them take us by surprise." The atmosphere was electric as Maya, now 26, gathered the members of their alliance. The firelight flickered against determined faces, casting shadows that seemed to dance with the gravity of the situation. The recent news of the Xyler's impending attack had ignited a fierce resolve among the group. "Listen up, everyone," Maya called out, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "We have less than 24 hours to prepare for a major offensive. We need to set up defenses and strategize our response." Jackson, who stood at her side, nodded in agreement. "We've fought hard to get to this point, and we won't let them take us down without a fight. We know their tactics. We can use that knowledge to our advantage." Elena, now 25, stepped forward, her fiery spirit shining through. We need to anticipate their moves. Let's divide our forces into teams. Some of us can set traps, while others prepare the main defensive line. Maya could see the fire in her friend's eyes, a blend of fear and fierce determination. This moment felt pivotal, a test of their growth not only as warriors, but as individuals united by purpose. As they worked through the night, mapping out plans and assigning roles, Maya couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. Just months ago, they had been unsure of their path, struggling to find their footing amid the chaos of war. Now, they were a cohesive unit, each member playing to their strengths. The sun rose the next morning, casting a golden hue over the encampment. The tension in the air was palpable, yet the alliance had transformed their fear into focus. Maya moved among the groups, offering encouragement and support, feeling the weight of leadership settling on her shoulders. As they fortified their defenses, Jackson approached her, a sense of urgency in his eyes. "Maya, I think we need to talk about the contingency plans. If they breach our defenses, then we regroup at the fallback point," she replied, cutting him off. "I'm not thinking about that right now." He looked at her, concern etched across his face. "You have to. We can't afford to be caught off guard. You've always been the one to keep us grounded." Maya felt a pang of frustration. "I know, but I can't dwell on the what-ifs right now. We need to be in the moment." "Being in the moment is important, but so is preparation," he countered, his tone gentle but firm. She softened at his words, recognizing the wisdom in his insistence. "You're right. Let's finalize the fallback plan, but I want to focus on our defenses first. We can do this, Jackson." His expression shifted, a hint of a smile breaking through his worry. "I believe in us, too. Just don't forget that planning can save lives." With renewed resolve, Maya joined her friends in fortifying their camp, utilizing every resource they had. The camaraderie among them felt electric, a reminder of their shared purpose. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for each other. The day of the anticipated attack dawned, and tension rippled through the camp like a living entity. Maya, Jackson, and Elena stood at the front lines, surveying the landscape ahead. The Xyler forces were approaching, their numbers overwhelming, yet Maya felt a sense of calm settle over her. "They're coming," Jackson said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Positions." Maya could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Stay focused. Remember the plan. We fight for each other, and we fight smart." As the first wave of Xyler soldiers surged forward, the alliance sprang into action. Maya fought alongside her friends, the rush of battle igniting a primal instinct within her. She felt alive, every movement fluid as she dodged blaster fire and returned fire with precision. Elena fought with a fierce intensity, her determination pushing her beyond her limits. "This is for everyone we've lost," she shouted, rallying their forces. Jackson was a steady presence, coordinating their movements, ensuring they stayed united. His voice cut through the chaos, guiding them like a lighthouse in a storm. The battle raged on, a chaotic symphony of sound and fury. As the Xyler pressed forward, Maya could feel the ground beneath them shifting. Their defenses were holding, but she sensed the tide turning. "Regroup," she shouted, rallying her team as they fell back to the next line of defense. The air was thick with smoke, and the cries of the wounded echoed in her ears. She pushed those sounds aside, focusing on the task at hand. The battle stretched into the night, each moment feeling like a lifetime. Exhaustion seeped into Maya's bones, but she refused to give in. The alliance fought valiantly, pushing back against the Xyler forces, but the overwhelming numbers began to take their toll. As they reached a critical point, Maya noticed a group of Xyler soldiers flanking them. "Jackson!" she shouted, urgency lacing her voice. "They're trying to cut us off." "I see them," he replied, his eyes narrowing with determination. "We need to hold this line." But as they fought back, the realization hit Maya like a thunderclap. The Xyler had been baiting them, drawing them away from their true target. She felt a sinking dread in her gut as she shouted, "They're not after us, they're after the camp." "Elena, we need to fall back to the command center," Jackson shouted, eyes fierce with purpose. Elena nodded, her expression resolute. Let's move. They fought their way back through the chaos, adrenaline propelling them forward as they raced against time. Maya's heart pounded in her chest, a mix of fear and determination propelling her to keep pushing. As they arrived at the command center, they found it under siege. The air crackled with energy as blaster fire erupted all around them. "Get the civilians to safety," Maya shouted, urgency flooding her voice. Jackson was already coordinating the evacuation, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Maya, we need to create a barrier." Together, they set to work, using debris and makeshift barricades to fortify the center. Elena stayed by Maya's side, her fierce spirit unwavering. "We can't let them breach this place," she yelled, her eyes filled with determination. As dawn broke, the battle raged on, but the tide began to turn in their favor. The alliance fought valiantly, each member drawing strength from one another. The camaraderie that had formed over the months had become their greatest weapon. "Push forward," Maya shouted, her voice a beacon of hope. "We can do this, for everyone we've lost." The unity they had forged propelled them forward, and one by one, they began to push back the Xyler forces. Maya could feel the energy shifting, the tide turning in their favor as the sun rose higher in the sky. In the midst of the chaos, she caught sight of Jackson, who was flanked by several soldiers. His brow was furrowed in concentration as he shouted commands, keeping the line strong. Elena fought fiercely, her movements fluid and purposeful. They were a well-oiled machine, each person knowing their role and executing it with precision. Maya's heart swelled with pride as she fought alongside her friends, a sense of belonging igniting within her. But then, in the heat of battle, Maya's world shifted again. She heard a loud explosion, and a shockwave rippled through the air. She spun around to see one of the barricades collapsing, and in that split second, everything slowed down. "Jackson!" she screamed, watching as he was thrown backward, his body colliding with the ground. "No!" Elena cried out, rushing toward him, but Maya felt her feet rooted to the spot. "Get to him!" she shouted, the words leaving her mouth before she even thought about them. Elena didn't hesitate, darting forward as Maya snapped back into action. Adrenaline surged through her as she fought her way through the chaos, her heart pounding in her chest. "Jackson, can you hear me?" Elena knelt beside him, her voice shaking as she checked for injuries. He groaned, trying to push himself up. "I'm okay, I think?" But the look in his eyes told a different story. Maya reached them, her heart racing as she scanned for threats. "We need to get out of here," she urged. "Help me get him up," Elena said, determination etched across her face. Together, they hoisted Jackson to his feet, adrenaline and fear driving them. "Let's move," Maya urged, guiding them toward the makeshift exit. But just as they began to retreat, more Xyler soldiers flooded into the command center. Panic surged through Maya as she turned back to face the oncoming threat. "We need to hold them off," she shouted, her voice breaking through the chaos. "We can't let them take Jackson." Jackson's eyes met hers, a mix of determination and vulnerability. "You need to go. Get the civilians to safety," he shouted, trying to push them away. Maya shook her head vehemently. "I won't leave you behind. We fight together." The battle had intensified, chaos erupting around Maya, Jackson, and Elena as they held their ground. Maya felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders, the gravity of their choices echoing in every decision they made. She glanced at Jackson, his face pale but determined, and at Elena, who was brimming with fierce resolve. Their bond had solidified through shared trials, and the stakes had never been higher. "Let's fall back to the eastern exit," Maya shouted, her heart pounding as she directed them through the collapsing barricades. "We'll make a stand there." Jackson, despite his injuries, nodded. "I can cover the rear," he said, determination etched into his features. "You two get to safety." "No way," Elena insisted, eyes blazing. "We're not splitting up now. We fight together, remember?" Maya felt a rush of gratitude for Elena's spirit. "Right. Together. We stick together." They moved as a unit, adrenaline coursing through their veins, firing on instinct. As they neared the exit, Xylar forces surged toward them. Maya raised her weapon, her heart racing with the thrill of the fight. Every shot fired felt like a strike against their oppressors, a declaration of their refusal to back down. Hours turned into a blur of combat, but eventually the tide began to turn in their favor. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden glow across the battlefield as the Xylar forces started to falter. Maya felt a sense of hope blooming within her, a hope that they might just reclaim their future. As they fought, the realization washed over her that they had transformed from scared individuals into a formidable alliance. The personal growth each of them had undergone was profound. Maya, who had once struggled with self-doubt, now commanded with authority. Jackson, who had always been the planner, had become a warrior in his own right. And Elena, the heart of their group, had harnessed her fierce spirit into a powerful force for change. "Keep pushing," Maya shouted, rallying her friends. "We can do this." They fought their way to the front lines, where they could see their comrades holding back the Xylar. Jackson, despite his injuries, had a look of fierce determination. "We can't stop now, not after everything we've fought for." With renewed energy, they surged forward, the momentum shifting. The Xylar soldiers began to retreat, their formation breaking under the pressure. Maya could feel the exhilaration coursing through her as they pressed the advantage. The next morning, they gathered in the remnants of their command center, surveying the damage. The once bustling space was now filled with debris and reminders of the battle they had fought. But amidst the destruction, there was a palpable sense of victory. "We did it," Elena said softly, her eyes wide with disbelief. "We really did it." Jackson smiled, albeit wearily. "We've shown them that we won't back down. We've made our mark." Maya felt a surge of pride for her friends. They had faced insurmountable odds and emerged stronger, more unified. This is just the beginning. We need to regroup, rebuild, and prepare for the next phase. The challenges ahead were daunting, but together, they felt ready to face whatever came their way. They spent the day gathering intelligence from the battlefield and strategizing their next moves. Each discussion brought them closer, the trust they had built allowing them to voice their ideas and fears openly. As they sat around a makeshift table, the atmosphere was charged with possibility. "What's next for us?" Elena asked, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Maya looked at her friends, the weight of leadership heavy but invigorating. "We've shown our strength. Now we need to build alliances with other groups. If we can unite forces, we can take the fight to the Xylar and regain our territory." Jackson nodded, his analytical mind already at work. "We'll need to gather intel on other factions and determine who might be willing to join us. We can't fight this battle alone." Maya felt a thrill of excitement. "We'll reach out to anyone who shares our vision. This is about more than just survival. It's about creating a future for everyone." In the following weeks, they worked tirelessly to reach out to other factions, each encounter a new challenge. They learned to navigate the complexities of diplomacy, facing skepticism and mistrust from those who had suffered under the Xylar's reign. Maya's leadership skills were put to the test as she faced rejection and disappointment, but her resolve never wavered. During one particularly tense meeting with a skeptical leader from a neighboring faction, Maya stood firm. "I understand your doubts, but we need to unite. If we continue to fight separately, we're giving the Xylar what they want. Together, we can take back our land." The leader's gaze narrowed, assessing her sincerity. "And what assurance do we have that you won't just lead us into another trap?" Maya met his eyes with unwavering confidence. "You have my word. We've already fought the Xylar. We know their tactics, and we've proven that we can stand against them. Join us, and we can reclaim our future together." After what felt like an eternity, he finally nodded, albeit cautiously. "We'll consider your proposal, but know that if you betray us, there will be consequences." As they left the meeting, Elena turned to Maya, admiration shining in her eyes. "You were incredible back there. You didn't back down." Maya felt a swell of pride. I couldn't. We can't afford to be timid anymore. This is about our survival. Jackson joined them, a thoughtful expression on his face. That was just one faction. We need to build more alliances to strengthen our position. The trio moved forward, their spirits bolstered by their determination to bring about change. They spent days on the road, visiting other factions and building relationships. With each successful alliance, their hope grew. By early April, they had formed a coalition of various factions, each united by a shared goal: to take down the Xyler once and for all. The camaraderie among the groups ignited a sense of purpose that rippled through their ranks. As they prepared for their first unified offensive, Maya stood before the assembled coalition. Her heart raced as she looked at the diverse faces before her: warriors, survivors, and families, all eager to fight for a brighter future. "We stand here today, not just as soldiers but as allies," she began, her voice steady and powerful. "Together, we can accomplish what we could never achieve alone. Today, we fight for our homes, our families, and our future. We will show the Xyler that we will not be silenced." Cheers erupted, a chorus of determination and hope that reverberated in Maya's chest. She could feel the energy of unity surrounding them, a powerful force that invigorated her spirit. After the rally, Elena approached Maya, her expression serious. "This is a huge responsibility. Are you ready for this?" Maya nodded, her resolve firm. "I have to be. We've come too far to turn back now." Jackson joined them, his expression thoughtful. "We'll face challenges, but we have each other. That's what makes us stronger." Maya looked between her friends, feeling the bond they shared deepening. "No matter what happens, we face it together. We've built something worth fighting for." The day of their unified offensive arrived, and the anticipation in the air was electric. As they approached the Xyler stronghold, Maya felt a mix of fear and excitement. This was the moment they had trained for, the culmination of their efforts to unite against a common enemy. "Stay sharp," she called out as they moved into position, her heart racing with adrenaline. "We've trained for this, and we can do it." As the battle began, Maya led the charge, her instincts guiding her through the chaos. She fought alongside her friends, their camaraderie bolstering their spirits. They were no longer just a small group. They were part of something much larger, a movement. Elena fought fiercely, her spirit igniting the courage of those around her. "Keep pushing, for everyone we've lost." Jackson coordinated their efforts, his strategic mind ensuring they moved as one cohesive unit. "Focus fire on their flanks. Let's break their formation." As the battle raged on, the tide of war began to shift in their favor. Each victory fueled their resolve, and the coalition fought with renewed energy, reclaiming ground lost to the Xyler. In the midst of the chaos, Maya spotted a group of Xyler soldiers attempting to regroup. "We can't let them get organized," she shouted, rallying her friends. "Let's push forward." They surged into the fray, the adrenaline surging as they pressed the advantage. Maya felt alive, every movement fluid and purposeful, her fears momentarily forgotten in the rush of battle. As the dust settled, the coalition emerged victorious, having reclaimed significant territory from the Xyler. Maya stood amidst the aftermath, a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration coursing through her. They had achieved what many thought impossible. As the dust settled from the recent battle, Maya stood on the outskirts of the reclaimed territory, her heart pounding with the adrenaline of victory and the weight of what lay ahead. Around her, the coalition members celebrated, their laughter and cheers filling the air, yet she felt a deep current of introspection pulling at her. "Can you believe we did it?" Elena's voice broke through her thoughts. The fiery redhead stood beside her, a beaming smile lighting up her face, the exhaustion of battle temporarily forgotten. Maya turned to her friend, seeing the joy and hope reflected in her eyes. "I can't. But we have to stay focused. This was just one battle, and there's still so much work to do." Elena nodded, but the enthusiasm remained. "You're right, but we can't forget to celebrate our victories. Look at how far we've come." Jackson approached, his brow slightly furrowed as he observed the revelry. We need to debrief. I've been compiling intelligence from the battle. There are critical points we need to discuss. Maya appreciated his unwavering focus, even in the wake of triumph. You're right. Let's gather everyone. This is a moment to reflect and strategize. As they convened the coalition leaders, the mood shifted from celebration to determination. Maya found herself at the center of the discussions, her leadership skills becoming more refined as she navigated differing opinions and ideas. She was growing, becoming not just a fighter, but a strategist, learning to balance emotional responses with logical reasoning. 3 days later, the coalition gathered to assess their position. They spread out maps and battle plans on a makeshift table, each leader sharing insights from their own experiences. Maya felt a surge of pride watching them collaborate, the camaraderie they had built becoming a living entity. Okay, everyone, let's outline our next moves, Maya said, her voice steady. We've made great progress, but we can't let our guard down. The Xyler will retaliate. Jackson pointed to a specific area on the map. We need to fortify this line. The Xyler will likely attempt to reclaim territory quickly. Elena chimed in, her energy infectious. And we should scout the areas beyond our current reach. If we can disrupt their supply lines, we'll weaken their position. As they mapped out their plans, Maya noticed a shift within herself. She was no longer just reacting to circumstances. She was actively shaping the future of their coalition. Every meeting, every battle, every conversation added to her growth, building her confidence and resilience. In the following weeks, they executed their strategy, reinforcing defenses and conducting reconnaissance missions. Maya took part in scouting expeditions with Jackson and Elena, the three of them navigating the rough terrain and gathering valuable intel. Each mission brought new challenges, but with each success, their bond deepened. One evening, after a long day of scouting, they sat around a campfire, the warmth enveloping them as they shared stories of their lives before the war. Maya felt a sense of vulnerability emerge, revealing a side of herself she had kept hidden. I used to think I wanted to be an artist, Maya confessed, staring into the flames. But with everything that's happened, I didn't think I could ever go back to that. Now, it feels like a lifetime ago. Elena looked thoughtful. Art can be a powerful tool for change. You could inspire others, even now. Maya smiled, appreciating her friend's perspective. Maybe, but it feels trivial compared to this fight. Jackson chimed in, his voice steady. Creating art, even in times of war, can provide hope. It reminds us of what we're fighting for. Maya pondered this, feeling a flicker of inspiration. You're right. I think I've been so focused on survival that I forgot the importance of dreams. As the night wore on, the fire crackled, light the evolving dynamics between them. They had become more than just allies. They were family, each supporting the other's personal growth while sharing the burdens of their collective struggle. By the start of May, they faced their next challenge, a significant offensive against a heavily fortified Xyler base. The coalition's leaders had discussed the operation for days, and now it was time to put their plans into action. Remember, Maya addressed her team, her voice steady, this won't be easy. The Xyler will fight fiercely to protect their territory. Stay close to your partners and watch each other's backs. As they prepared for the assault, Maya felt the weight of responsibility settle on her once more. Each life in their coalition was precious, and the thought of leading them into battle filled her with a mix of fear and determination. She had to protect them. The attack commenced, the air thick with tension. Maya led the charge, adrenaline fueling her every move as they breached the Xyler defenses. The battle was fierce, chaos erupting as blaster fire echoed around them. She fought alongside Elena and Jackson, their bond manifesting in seamless teamwork. On the left, Jackson shouted, pointing out a group of advancing Xyler soldiers. Maya instinctively moved to flank them, her training and instincts guiding her actions. Elena took a moment to check on their fellow coalition members, her heart full of courage as she encouraged them. Stay strong, we've come too far to turn back. The battle raged on, But amidst the chaos, Maya noticed a glimmer of something in the corner of her eye, an incoming Xyler ambush targeting their rear flank. "We need to redirect," she yelled, urgency lacing her voice. Jackson immediately fell in line, adjusting their formation. "Cover the retreat. We need to pull back to the main line." Maya felt her pulse quicken as they executed the maneuver. "Stay together. We can't afford to lose anyone." In the heat of battle, she noticed a coalition member faltering, caught off guard by the sudden ambush. Without thinking, Maya dashed forward, adrenaline propelling her as she reached the soldier just in time to pull him back. "Keep your head in the game," she shouted, determination shining in her eyes. "We fight for each other." Their connection deepened in that moment, each battle reinforcing their commitment to one another. As they pushed back the Xyler, the realization that they were fighting not just for survival, but for a shared dream echoed in Maya's heart. After days of fighting, they emerged from the conflict with a hard-won victory. The coalition had reclaimed significant ground, and their morale soared. But Maya knew the war was far from over. During a debriefing session, they gathered around the same makeshift table they had used for planning. Each member shared their experiences, the challenges they faced, and their hopes for the future. Maya felt a surge of pride as she listened to her friends articulate their dreams. Elena spoke passionately about creating safe havens for families, while Jackson discussed strategies for securing their newfound territory. "We've proven we can fight together," Maya said, standing to address them. "But we must also build. We need to create a future that extends beyond this war. We can't just be survivors, we must thrive." The room erupted in agreement, a unified force ready to turn their attention toward rebuilding. In that moment, Maya felt the culmination of her growth. She was no longer just a soldier, she was a leader, shaping the future for those she cared about. Over the next few weeks, they dedicated themselves to rebuilding their community, establishing new homes for families who had been displaced by the war. Maya worked closely with Elena, coordinating efforts to ensure everyone had a place to call home. "Look at this," Elena said one day, surveying the site of a new community center. "We're creating something beautiful out of all this chaos." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. "We're not just rebuilding structures, we're rebuilding hope." As they labored side by side, their friendship deepened, and Maya began to recognize the power of community. They were creating a new life, one that celebrated resilience and connection. Jackson joined them, his thoughtful expression revealing the weight of his own thoughts. "I've been considering our defenses. We need to ensure our new homes are secure. The Xyler won't stop." Maya nodded, appreciating his foresight. "We'll integrate our defensive strategies with our rebuilding efforts. It's all part of creating a sustainable future." Their conversations became a blend of practical planning and dreams for what lay ahead. Each day brought new challenges, but together they faced them with unwavering determination. As the summer approached, the coalition had made significant progress. They had not only built homes, but had also fostered a sense of community among the factions. The spirit of camaraderie flourished as they shared stories, traditions, and celebrations. One evening, they organized a gathering to honor their journey. Families gathered under the stars, the flickering lights of makeshift lanterns light their faces. Laughter echoed through the air, a reminder of what they had fought for. Maya looked around, her heart swelling with pride. She spotted Elena leading a group of children in games, her laughter infectious. Jackson stood nearby, engaging with other leaders, strategizing for the future.